Chapter 760. A genius remembers love in 1 second. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. This is an expert. At the very least, I couldn't do this when I was a 7-star saint, Inshi said in shock as she looked at the broken mountain range. 10,000 years ago, the 9 regions world was at its peak. There were many experts, and it was normal for there to be peak saints, Night Sorrow said as they continued to move forward. As they moved forward, Night Sorrow saw traces of an intense battle. At that time, there should be sword chi everywhere, and gullies extending in all directions. The two of them checked carefully. Then, Inshi called out to Night Sorrow because she saw a corpse on one side of the mountain range. It was half a corpse, with 2 legs and half a waist. This is not important. Let's go over there and take a look. Night Sorrow flew toward the other side of the mountain range gap, and Inshi followed beside Night Sorrow. Then, Night Sorrow saw an unexpected scene. It was a corpse without a lower body, and it was holding a long sword in its hand to keep its body from falling. This is a senior cultivator of the wind attribute, Night Sorrow said as he looked at the corpse. He also saw the storage ring on the corpse's left hand. Then, Night Sorrow found something wrong. The half-corpse he saw at the beginning still had flesh and blood that had not decayed, but the half-corpse here had turned into bones. As if she knew what Night Sorrow was thinking, Inshi said, "This senior must have been injured first, then cut in half at the waist." After losing all hope, he burned all his essence and blood to fight. It seems that his opponent did not have an easy time. Otherwise, his opponent would have taken away his storage ring and weapon. Even if they didn't perish together, both sides should have been injured. Night Sorrow said with some emotion. This was not the first time he had seen such a situation. The Dark Spirit Saint and Life Saintess had been like this too. When 2 saints fight, their strength is almost the same. If one fights with his life, the other will not have an easy time, Inshi said. Okay, take a look at the weapon, and then we'll bury him, Night Sorrow said to Inshi. Judging from the energy fluctuations, this is a saint-grade longsword. 10,000 years ago, there were many saint-grade experts, so many saint-grade weapons were passed down. Shinsang Inshi bowed to the corpse and took the sword from the corpse's hand. Holding the long sword, Inshi waved it and a ray of sword light cut open the mountain rock beside her. Night Sorrow took the corpse's storage ring, then went to the other side of the mountain gap, wrapped it in energy, and took half of the corpse back, then used the sky-piercing spear to dig a hole. I don't know which side you belong to, but taking your saint crystal is a blasphemy, but it can benefit future generations. Night Sorrow stretched out his left hand and took out the saint crystal from the skull. Night Sorrow then buried the corpse in the pit. Inshi studied the long sword. The long sword was called the Flowing Wind Sword, but Inshi kept it in his storage ring. Why not? Night Sorrow asked. It needs to be nourished. I can use it immediately, but it's not as powerful as my original long sword, Inshi said. Take the time to nourish it. When the time comes, give me your current long sword. I'll give it to someone. My 6th senior sister has the wind attribute, Night Sorrow said. Well, it won't take long. Half a month will do, Inshi said. Then, the two continued to explore the surrounding area, and the scope of their exploration became larger and larger. This was because it was normal for an injured saint to run 1,000 or even a few thousand miles. At noon on the 3rd day, the two found a special situation in another place. The environment was similar to when Night Sorrow saw the corpse of the Life Saintess in the death space. It was a lifelike corpse of a middle-aged woman with a blue scale on her forehead. The woman in the middle stood there, and there was a pool under her feet. The pool was not filled with life spiritual liquid, but with clear water rich in spiritual energy and a small number of soul crystals. Don't move. Night Sorrow stopped Inshi. What's wrong? Can't you see that she's holding a long sword and wearing a storage ring? She looked at Night Sorrow and said, I know. This woman's aura is very strange. She's not from the Nine Zones world. Her corpse is so lifelike, so it's hard to say whether her soul will be destroyed. If we're not careful, she might be possessed. I've seen such things before. Night Sorrow looked at Shi and said, that makes sense. I'm not afraid of being possessed. You can hide in the pagoda of time and space, she said. You don't have to worry about me. I'm afraid that your soul defense is low, and she will try to possess you. If she dares to possess me, she's asking for trouble. Night Sorrow looked at Shi and said, our Silver Devil clan has a soul defense secret technique. Last time, we were hit hard by you, so we didn't have time to use the deity ocean defense. Now that we're prepared, we'll be fine, she said. Seeing that she was confident, Night Sorrow walked forward and punched the energy shield outside the pool. It was a kind of energy restriction. As the restriction was broken, the middle-aged woman opened her eyes. You're courting death for disturbing my cultivation. With a loud roar, the middle-aged woman's aura began to rise. Then, Night Sorrow could not see the middle-aged woman's cultivation level clearly. She held a long sword in her right hand and pulled Night Sorrow back with her left hand. Get lost. I'll pretend that nothing happened. The middle-aged woman looked at Shi and Night Sorrow. I thought you were powerful. So you're only a level 8 supremacy. Shi's body flashed and she charged toward the middle-aged woman in blue. At this time, the middle-aged woman also drew her sword and fought against Shi. The middle-aged woman in blue's sword technique was very sharp. Her sword technique also contained the power of the rules. However, Shi's attack was strong and fast. She suppressed the middle-aged woman in blue. If my cultivation level was still here, I'd kill a trashy saint like you in a moment. The middle-aged woman's body flashed and she was about to leave. Don't talk nonsense. Part of my cultivation level has been destroyed. What's the use of bragging? She chased after her. Night Sorrow entered the pool and scooped up the few soul crystals. Then, he chased after Shi and the middle-aged woman in blue. At this time, Shi had the absolute upper hand. Because of Shi's fast speed, the middle-aged woman in blue could not escape even if she wanted to. Night Sorrow did not get too close because he could not intervene in a battle of this level. Night Sorrow was very happy because the middle-aged woman in blue was still alive. All the resources were still there. As long as the middle-aged woman in blue was killed, Night Sorrow could go and count the gains. At this time, the middle-aged woman in blue was very angry. In her eyes, Shi was trash. However, Shi's speed made her helpless. She could not win the battle and she could not escape. The only U version S hashtag, the other J60 all FF is a pirated version. Night Sorrow followed from a distance. He stared at the middle-aged woman's long sword. He felt that the long sword was similar to the one she had. It was probably a saint-level sword. Chapter 761. Genius 1 second. Remember, love divided by go divided by little. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Seeing that she was sure to win, Night Sorrow took the wine jar and drank as he watched the battle and learned from it. A quarter of an hour later, she performed her wind elemental flash and pierced through the head of the saintess in blue while she cursed. If I wasn't worried about your tricks, I would have killed you a long time ago. Why would I listen to your nonsense? Shi's long sword vibrated and completely shattered the spirit sea of the saintess in blue. She then took out the holy crystal. Good. Well done. Let's stop here. Night Sorrow clapped his hands and said. She smiled at Night Sorrow. She took the saintess in blue's long sword and storage ring and went to Night Sorrow's side. This girl is of the water attribute, but I can feel that she is not from the 9-domain world. She was severely injured back then, so she has been in a state of hibernation. Her cultivation has not recovered. Yi Shang still dug a hole and buried the body of the blue-clothed saintess. Then, he took the spoils from Yin Shi. After Night Sorrow put away the holy crystal, he took the storage ring and the long sword and asked Yin Shi, "Is the long sword a saint-grade long sword?" Love Go Little Say W. Chu, "Yes, definitely. And the quality is better than mine. But you must have prepared it for your Aunt Fei. Besides, the wind attribute is more suitable for me." Yin Shi said. Night Sorrow nodded and then put away the long sword. "Let's go into the space-time pagoda to count the loot." After speaking, Night Sorrow brought Yin Shi into the space-time pagoda. Night Sorrow opened the holy woman's storage ring and found that she was very rich. She had 2 high-grade spirit weapons. One was of the water element, which Night Sorrow knew was for backup. The other was of the fire element. Other than the 2 spirit tool-level swords, there were also attribute crystals. There were at most a dozen water attribute crystals, a few wind attribute crystals, and a few other attribute crystals. The most valuable one was the Saint Spirit Stone. In this woman's storage ring, there were more than 20 Saint Spirit Stones and a few hundred extreme-grade Spirit Stones. However, there were no upper-grade Spirit Stones. "Why aren't there any cultivation methods?" Night Sorrow said somewhat gloomily. "Cultivation techniques are all memorized in one's mind. Unless it's a real big shot or a cultivation technique that belongs to him or her, the average disciple of a sect wouldn't carry a cultivation technique book with him," Yin Shi said. Night Sorrow then opened the storage ring of the holy woman who was cut in half. There were extreme-grade spirit stones, some healing medicine, and some materials for refining weapons and elixir pills. It's not easy being a 9 regions holy woman. She's short on resources, but she could still fight with her opponent until both sides suffered, Night Sorrow said emotionally. "I wonder where this outsider came from. He's really rich in resources," Yin Shi said. "It's not easy for you this time. I'll give you some. Take it yourself," Night Sorrow said as he pointed at the pile of extreme-grade spirit stones on the ground and the Saint Spirit Stones on the table. "You're really giving it to me. Without you, I wouldn't be able to come in. Besides, what's mine is yours," Yin Shi said as she shook her head. "Take it. You need it too. It's good for you and me to increase your strength." "Shen Song," Night Sorrow said. Then, Yin Shi took 4 Saint Spirit Stones and 100 extreme-grade Spirit Stones. She then nodded at Night Sorrow. "You're not greedy. Call me if you need anything." Night Sorrow nodded and sorted out the materials. Night Sorrow was very happy with this harvest. It was equivalent to solving some of his basic problems. The problem of Wu Lingfei's weapon was solved. Aoi and Sikong Chuyu also had spiritual weapons to use. The only thing missing was Yang Lei's weapon. Yang Lei was of the lightning attribute, so there were relatively few lightning attribute spiritual weapons. "Why scissor fast?" 3. 6-inch Seeing Night Sorrow shake his head, Yin Shi asked. Night Sorrow didn't hide anything and told her about Yang Lei's situation. Looking at Night Sorrow, Yin Shi took out a long sword. "I happen to have a spiritual weapon level lightning attribute sword. Give it to her. After you nourish your flowing wind sword, you can also take this weapon in my hand. Then, the problem will be solved. No one will recognize your weapon and this lightning attribute weapon, right?" Night Sorrow asked. Yin Shi shook her head. Unless the weapon was very special, no one would be able to recognize it. Then Night Sorrow mentioned the problem of Yin Shi's body fragrance. He told Yin Shi not to use any spices in the future. This was simply cheating him. However, Yin Shi's answer made Night Sorrow feel very helpless. She didn't use any spices. Her body fragrance was unique to the women of the Silver Devil clan. This situation made Night Sorrow feel very helpless. He felt that every time he came out of the space-time treasure pagoda, he had to take a shower first. Otherwise, Aoi, Yanglei, and Sikong Chuyu would find out sooner or later. Seeing Night Sorrow's helpless expression, She smiled. She knew that Night Sorrow was troubled by her fragrance last time. Most of the time, Night Sorrow would open up the soul connection between him and She. Let's rest for a few days and then continue. I plan to consolidate my cultivation and nourish the flowing wind sword. She looked at Night Sorrow and said. In the past, she was domineering and others would listen to her orders. Now, everything was decided by Night Sorrow and she was already used to it. Night Sorrow nodded. Chapter 762. Genius 1 second. Remember love go/little. Showa.net provides you with wonderful novels to read. Well, the preparation is a small matter. Let me tell you first. I will use the energy of the wind body to enter your body and help you nourish your body. However, you can't control or cut off my energy. If you do that, you will be setting me up. She looked at Night Sorrow and said. If the energy of your wind body enters my body and explodes, won't I be in trouble? Night Sorrow muttered. What's in it for me? I am helping you nourish the toughness of your body and the energy in your body. Your body and energy are strong but not tough enough. She said. Then, She told Night Sorrow that there was no need for Night Sorrow to do anything. He just needed to circulate the energy in his body naturally. After speaking, She got on the big bed and took off her skirt. At this time, Night Sorrow couldn't care less. He also took off his robe and got on the big bed. They hadn't done this for a long time. The two of them fought fiercely. After 2 hours, Night Sorrow finally finished. At this time, She flipped onto Night Sorrow's body and sat cross-legged on his waist. She nodded at Night Sorrow and started to cultivate. Night Sorrow looked at She who was cultivating with her eyes closed. Then, he started to circulate the energy in his body. At this time, a cool energy entered Night Sorrow's body from She's waist. It circulated with the energy of Night Sorrow's myriad Tao treasured book. Night Sorrow knew that this was the energy of She's wind body. He knew that She wouldn't harm him now, so he let this energy circulate in his body with the energy of his myriad Tao treasured book. At first, he didn't feel anything. Then, Night Sorrow felt that his body and the myriad Tao tome's energy had indeed changed under the nourishment of Silver Dusk's energy. It had become more resilient as it surged. The intensity of the energy was still the same as before. However, the previous flaws, bubbles, and varying intensities in the energy had slowly disappeared. In other words, Night Sorrow's myriad Tao tome's energy had become much more complete. An hour later, She withdrew the energy that had entered Night Sorrow's body. She turned over and left Night Sorrow's body, then went to the side to wash herself. Night Sorrow also stood up and put on his robe. At the same time, he nodded at She. This was because the cultivation effect this time was very strong. It was equivalent to nourishing his myriad Tao tome at a very high level. After tidying herself up, She told Night Sorrow that she had also gained a lot. While helping Night Sorrow, she had also taken away the flawed energy of Night Sorrow's myriad Tao treasured book. After she had refined it, it had also increased the intensity of her wind body's energy. This time, Night Sorrow didn't say anything about the benefits that She had gained. This was because he had gained more benefits. Baidu search AI Go Xiao Shua www.aichux. Then, the two of them began to cultivate. She had to refine the flawed energy of the myriad Tao treasured book. At the same time, she was nourishing the flowing wind sword. When the flowing wind sword was completely nourished, her strength would increase by a large margin. Night Sorrow held the desolate stone and cultivated. At the same time, he let Shao Kong transfer the energy of his soul power and bloodline power to him. Looking at Night Sorrow being enveloped by dense energy, She curled her lips. She knew that this was the difference in treatment. 2%, forever free to look at small c. Say 7. Night Sorrow was the person recognized by the Spacetime Treasure Pagoda. In other words, he was the owner. The Spacetime Treasure Pagoda would of course fully support Night Sorrow's cultivation. She could only cultivate naturally here. Fully refining the desolate stone, Night Sorrow strengthened his soul power and bloodline power at the same time. His soul power increased naturally. However, the quantity of his bloodline power couldn't be increased. He could only continue to strengthen the quality. Half a month had passed. Night Sorrow's myriad Tao treasured books attribute power had increased by a lot. It was close to saturation. At the same time, his cultivation had also increased by a lot. Looking at the white desolate stone in his hand, Night Sorrow stood up and stretched his waist. Seeing that Night Sorrow had finished cultivating, she also stood up. At the same time, she took out her old spiritual artifact longsword and passed it to Night Sorrow. I have already retrieved the soul imprint. You can give it to your fiancé to use. It seems that you have made great progress in this half a month. Night Sorrow said as he kept the longsword. She nodded to Night Sorrow and told him about her situation. Some time ago, her cultivation had been greatly damaged. She started to cultivate again. The problems that she had not sorted out in the past had also been sorted out. With the Feng Yuan body as the foundation, her cultivation had not recovered, but she had a good foundation. Looking at Night Sorrow, she hesitated for a moment. She bit her lips and said, "Let's cultivate again. Your refining body has just increased, so it is a little unstable. There are more flaws. I can help you nourish them. At the same time, the power of the flaws in your body will be greatly beneficial to me after I refine it." Night Sorrow nodded and started the second real cultivation with Shi. This time, the two of them cultivated for more than 4 hours. Although it did not solve the problem of Night Sorrow's newly increased cultivation, Night Sorrow's myriad Tao treasured books cultivation was much more stable. Night Sorrow also took a bath. Then, the two of them continued to move forward in the supreme river space. Shi's combat power had greatly increased. Firstly, she had been refining the dragon spirit pill to increase her cultivation. Secondly, she had a sacred grade treasure sword. The power of her sword chi had increased exponentially. Using the sacred grade longsword, she did not need to use the power of law to protect the longsword. She did not need to worry about the longsword shattering. The power of law could be used to attack, increasing her attack power. It was the same for Night Sorrow. The myriad Tao treasured books cultivation had increased again. Coupled with the fact that it was flawless, it made his combat power much more comfortable. Then, the two of them continued to kill. When they were tired, they would enter the time-space treasure pagoda to recover. On this day, when the two of them were killing, another beast with a gray crystal-like horn appeared. Night Sorrow, retreat. This is a 3-star sacred grade nether beast. She looked at Night Sorrow and said, "Can you fight? If you can, I will clear the periphery." After Night Sorrow killed a nether beast, he switched between the space-splitting spear and the reincarnation spear. "Okay, be careful." She shouted and charged towards the nether beast. The sacred grade nether beast had half transformed. It had the head of a wolf and the body of a human. It even had a battle sword in its hand. Night Sorrow knew that the nether beast was not a simple group of beasts. They already had a civilization and could forge weapons. They were no different from humans. While Night Sorrow was observing, Shi and the 3-star sacred grade nether beast fought. Shi's cultivation was not as high as the nether beast. However, her realm was high and the power of law she could use was strong. With the help of the sacred grade treasure sword, Shi was not at a disadvantage. After a few rounds of probing, Shi began to display her speed. She circled the nether beast saint and started to attack. After a while, the 3-star sacred grade nether beast was covered in injuries from Shi's attacks. Night Sorrow, who was clearing the battlefield outside, could see that Shi could end the battle at any time. She was using this sacred grade nether beast to train and consolidate her cultivation. Chapter 763. Genius 1 second. Remember love go/little. We provide you with interesting novels to read. 1 hour later, Shi pierced through the nether beast's head with her sword. She had used up a lot of her cultivation, so she did not plan to continue playing. The one and only authentic version, his hashtag P is FC is R. Pirate G version. Night Sorrow had also been watching for half a day. He had already cleared the nether beasts outside. After Shi threw the nether beast Saint Crystal to Night Sorrow, the two of them left for a distance and entered the time-space pagoda. Both of them sat down to recover and increase their cultivation. At night, the two of them ended their cultivation. While drinking tea, Shi told Night Sorrow that as long as the nether beasts were not too strong, she was not afraid. She said that she could fight any nether beast below 7-star. At the very least, if she wanted to leave, the nether beasts would not be able to keep up with her speed. After cultivating the Wind Yuan body, Shi's speed was not far from her peak. The main thing was that she could continuously use the Wind Yuan escape technique, which greatly increased her survivability. After cultivating for a night, the two of them continued to move forward and kill. Shi told Night Sorrow to be careful because she could not defeat the 2 7-star peak nether beast saints that rushed out of the spatial tunnel last time. However, she could continuously use the Wind Yuan escape technique, so it was not a problem for her to stay alive. In the middle of the journey, Night Sorrow and Shi arrived at the second spatial tunnel that Night Sorrow had explored. After killing all the nether beasts here, Night Sorrow looked at Shi. Shi also looked at Night Sorrow. Now, the question was whether to enter or not. This space should be an Earth attribute space. I don't think it is dangerous. The suppression level is indeed below supremacy. With your ability, we can enter. Shi looked at Night Sorrow and said. Night Sorrow waved his hand at Shi. When Shi stood beside him, Night Sorrow activated the Nihility protective shield and brought Shi into the space. In 2 breaths of time, the two of them entered a space with very dense Earth attribute. The two of them saw some nether beasts below the venerable realm. Then, they were swept by Shi's sword chi and killed. At this moment, Shao Kong told Night Sorrow that there was a fluctuation of spiritual energy in front of them. Waving his hand at Shi, Night Sorrow followed Lil Kong's guidance and flew forward. After flying for less than 20 li, Night Sorrow stopped, because this was the place that Shao Kong had mentioned. Taking out the sky-piercing spear and stabbing it into the ground, Night Sorrow planned to start digging. With a radius of less than 100 miles, this is a newly formed space. There must be a reason why the space could be formed, Shi said. This might be the core. Let's dig and see. Since we're here, we can't go back empty-handed. Night Sorrow took the sky-piercing spear and started digging, while Shi watched from the side. After a while, Night Sorrow dug out a spirit stone, and Night Sorrow directly collected it. After digging more than 2 zhang deep, Night Sorrow dug out a special situation. There was a large yellow crystal with 4 or 5 Saint Spirit stones around it. Under the Saint Spirit stones, there was a corpse. Night Sorrow looked up at Shi. He didn't understand the situation in front of him. An Earth attribute expert died here. This space should be due to his own reasons. It's mainly because it's close to the space barrier, so it mutated, she said. Night Sorrow nodded. The yellow crystal wasn't a saint crystal, nor was it an origin stone. It was between the two. It should be an earth attribute saint crystal that mutated after absorbing the power of the rules of the earth attribute. Beside the corpse, Night Sorrow also saw a battle sword and a broken storage ring. This place is relatively stable now. It might not have been like this before. After being attacked by the power of the space turbulence, the saint-level battle sword was left behind, but the storage ring was torn apart by the turbulence. The energy here is dense because of the spirit stones in his storage ring. We came too early. After tens of thousands of years, the mutated origin stone will evolve into a space origin stone, but the effect is not bad now, she said. If we take away the spirit stones and the mutated origin stone, this space will have no future. We can't do anything about it, Night Sorrow said. We have to take it away. We don't know what the future will be like. If the nether beast takes it away, we'll suffer a great loss, she said. Night Sorrow nodded and took all the resources here. He also put the battle sword into his storage ring. The difference in attributes didn't mean much to him, but he couldn't leave the resources to the nether beast. The Supreme River space was a forbidden area to the 9 regions world. Only Night Sorrow could enter here, but to the nether beast, it was no different from its backyard. After taking the origin stone and the spirit stones, Night Sorrow and she walked around the area. This newly formed space was very barren. There were no refining materials or alchemy materials. Night Sorrow looked at the oppressive space inside. This space would be like this in the future. There was no possibility of development. Then, Night Sorrow and she returned to the Supreme River space and began to move forward. Other than hunting the nether beast, Night Sorrow and she cultivated in the Time Pagoda. Sometimes, she would help Night Sorrow nourish his myriad Tao Tome. A month later, Night Sorrow's myriad Tao Tome had reached the peak of the 3rd level of the God Refinement realm. At the same time, his elemental power had reached saturation. After thinking for a while, Night Sorrow decided to use the power of desolates to strengthen his body. By then, his body's strength would increase by a lot. After greeting she and informing Little Kong, Night Sorrow went into seclusion. After stabilizing his emotions, Night Sorrow circulated the power of the myriad Tao Tome. It rushed into his flesh, tendons, bones, and marrow. As the power of desolates entered his arms, Night Sorrow's arms moved rhythmically. His robes rotted and turned to dust. That was the erosion of the power of time. The pain of strengthening the body was very unbearable. Night Sorrow's sweat flowed down his face and his body trembled. She was shocked. She knew what was going on. She knew that Night Sorrow was strengthening his body. She had never heard of such strengthening before. She also knew that Night Sorrow was in pain. She could tell from his expression. After 4 hours, Night Sorrow finished strengthening his arms. After strengthening his arms, Night Sorrow went on to strengthen his legs. Then, the combat robes on his legs slowly turned to dust. Looking at Night Sorrow's sweaty face, she wanted to help wipe it off. However, she realized that she couldn't move her body. She couldn't move at all. Looking up, she knew that the space-time treasure pagoda was guarding her, preventing her from getting close to Night Sorrow. Helpless, she could only sit down and continue watching Night Sorrow cultivate. After strengthening his legs, Night Sorrow went on to strengthen his chest and back. He planned to finish strengthening in one go. After his robes were destroyed, Night Sorrow's body was naked in front of she. Looking at Night Sorrow's strong body, she blushed. She never thought that she would have a man. Chapter 764. A genius remembers love in 1 second. We provide you with interesting novels to read. In the world of cultivation, the age of a cultivator was not very clear because those who succeeded in cultivation had a lifespan of thousands of years. A few hundred years was nothing compared to a long life. For example, ordinary people were considered old when they were in their 40s or 50s. However, in the eyes of high-level cultivators, their lives had just begun. Appearance was the main factor to determine whether a cultivator was outstanding or not because their appearance would not change after reaching the void inquiry stage. Looking at Night Sorrow's body that was not plump but full of beauty, she was a little absent-minded. She experienced the saying fate plays tricks on people. Today's scene was beyond her wildest dreams. She was actually pressed down by a man who looked like a child to her. Night Sorrow was strengthening his body with all his might. After strengthening his head, his whole body was also strengthened. However, he did not get up. He circulated the outer chapter of the Myriad Tao book and strengthened his own treasures as well. He wanted to make sure that there were no blind spots on his body. Looking at the trembling huge bird on Night Sorrow's waist, she blushed. She knew that she might have to suffer again. After strengthening that part of Night Sorrow's body, his combat power would also become stronger. Night Sorrow used nearly a day to strengthen his body. His body was also covered in sweat. Looking at the ashes around him, Night Sorrow went to the pool to wash himself. He directly wrapped the dirty water with energy and threw it out of the time and space pagoda. First release. After putting on his combat pants, Night Sorrow sat opposite Shi. He took a cup of tea that Shi poured for him and drank it. How far have you cultivated your body? Shi asked. I've heard of the heavenly desolate sword body in the past. My current body should have surpassed that level. However, I don't have a name for it yet. Night Sorrow said. The current you is definitely the number one person in the 9 regions in terms of body achievements. She looked at Night Sorrow's chest that was filled with energy and said. Come and help me test my strength. Don't use the Saint-grade sword. Use your old sword. Night Sorrow took out Shi's old sword and handed it to her. How do we test it? Shi asked. She didn't want any misunderstandings. The consequences of angering Night Sorrow would be severe. Yishang pointed at his chest and asked Shi to start the experiment with a Venerable Realm cultivation base from Venerable Realm Level 1. As for whether or not he would be injured, Night Sorrow was not worried. Even if his chest was pierced, he would not die. Even if his heart was pierced, it would be instantly repaired by the energy in his body. He would be fine. Shi nodded and began to cooperate with Night Sorrow to test the speed of her body. Even when Shi unleashed the power of a 3rd-grade honorable, she was still unable to pierce through Night Sorrow's physical defense. This was only the physical defense. Night Sorrow had yet to unleash the energy of the Myriad Tao Tome. Then, Shi used the cultivation of a level 4 venerable to assassinate him. Her long sword pierced in 1.5 inches, but it was blocked by Night Sorrow's muscles. Shi took a step back. Night Sorrow was injured. She was afraid that Night Sorrow would be angry. However, she was stunned. At a speed visible to the naked eye, the wound on Night Sorrow's chest quickly healed. Night Sorrow lowered his head and pondered. He realized that his body could ignore attacks below the same level of cultivation. However, attacks above the same level could be broken. At this moment, Night Sorrow activated the energy of the Myriad Tao Tome and merged it into his body. He shouted at Shi again, and, let's do it again. Then, Shi unleashed the power of a level 4 venerable to attack Night Sorrow again. This time, her long sword only pressed in 1/2 inch into Night Sorrow's chest. However, it did not pierce through. Night Sorrow nodded at Shi again and asked her to increase her cultivation to attack. Shi unleashed the power of a level 5 venerable and held a spiritual weapon. However, she only managed to pierce in 1.5 inches. That's it. Night Sorrow looked at his recovered body and put on his outer robe. What exactly are you cultivating? She did not understand. She had never seen a cultivator who could cultivate his body to such an extent. You've only seen my current body's achievements. You don't know how much pain I've gone through to cultivate this technique. Yi Shang sighed with emotion. I can imagine that your current body should have a name, right? She asked curiously. Not yet. The name of the 7th rank is Indestructible Golden Body. It's not considered a successful cultivation yet. Night Sorrow took another sip of tea and said. Indestructible Golden Body. This name is so domineering. You will have no problem. Now you can completely ignore the attacks of cultivators with lower cultivation than you. She said. My current situation is a little different from the indestructible golden body recorded in the technique. Because I added the power of desolates, my power should be much stronger than what is recorded in the technique. It's considered a mutated indestructible golden body. Night Sorrow said. That Huang Wudao's body is called Desolate Sword Body. It's more appropriate for you to call it Desolate Indestructible Golden Body. She said. Desolate Indestructible Golden Body. Isn't this name a little too big? How can I call it Desolate Indestructible Golden Body? Night Sorrow looked at Shi. Yes, when you cultivate it, you will be worthy of this name. Shi nodded seriously. Then, the two of them drank tea and chatted. Night Sorrow had just finished his breakthrough and wanted to relax. In addition, his myriad Tao tomes cultivation had decreased. The main reason was that it consumed a lot of energy to strengthen his body. It dropped from the late stage of level 3 to the early stage of level 3. Then, Night Sorrow stabilized his cultivation for 2 days. During this time, Shi helped Night Sorrow nourish his body. The main reason was that Night Sorrow's desolate indestructible golden body had just been strengthened and was not smooth enough. Of course, Shi also took what she wanted. What made her feel conflicted was that Night Sorrow's strengthened bird had become much more ferocious and ferocious. She could not bear it. In Night Sorrow's words, she did not have a big mouth. If she had to force herself to eat such a big meal, she would definitely feel uncomfortable. In the end, she looked at Night Sorrow with fear in her eyes. She was afraid of Night Sorrow. She was glad that Night Sorrow was not too tyrannical. In the following days, the two of them were either moving forward or cultivating. Night Sorrow's cultivation had stabilized. His genuine chi cultivation was at the 4th level of the honor realm. It was impossible for him to advance in a short period of time. The same was true for the myriad Tao treasured tome. They were both stabilizing their cultivation and advancing slowly. Shi, on the other hand, was very nervous. She was not far from becoming a 3-star saint. According to her, it was only possible to kill a 7-star saint after becoming a 4-star saint. Cultivation did not equate to combat power. However, if the difference in cultivation was huge, even if one's combat power was equal, it would still be difficult to kill. If one's cultivation was similar, if one's combat power was strong and had a sacred weapon, it would be possible to kill. Night Sorrow reminded Shi. Although it was urgent to increase her cultivation, it was also important to condense her genuine chi. Then, Shi's explanation made Night Sorrow feel relieved. She used the power of the soul and the power of rules to compress and condense her genuine chi. Her genuine chi would not be empty. After moving forward for another month, the two of them saw the scene of the great battle again. However, they were disappointed after searching for a while. It was because they saw the broken sky. The battle was too intense. It broke the space and entered the space turbulence. It's hard to say whether we are dead or alive, but the resources definitely have nothing to do with us, Shi said. Chapter 765. Genius 1 second. Remember love go divided by Shao. We provide you with interesting novels to read. She was also helpless because there was nothing she could do about it. We've seen quite a number of battlefields. However, the things left behind by void inquiry stage experts and venerable realm experts are not of much use to us. Night Sorrow said. During this period of time, Night Sorrow and she did find a few battlefields. However, they were not saints' battlefields. Hence, they were not of much use to Night Sorrow and she. In a battle between saints, if they didn't perish together, we wouldn't be able to find anything left behind. Even if one party was injured, they would still take away the spoils of war of the loser. She said. Yes. We can't have too much hope in life. Our harvest this time is already not bad. Night Sorrow nodded. After that, Night Sorrow and she approached the spatial passageway of Dongxiang City. Night Sorrow told she to be cautious because there were a few Saint Realm nether beasts at the entrance of the spatial passageway. She thought for a while and felt that it was better to explore the passageway first. If she could fight, then they would decide what to do next. This time, the exploration was not as strenuous as Night Sorrow's exploration because she's true chi cultivation base was greatly damaged. However, the cultivation of her soul power was still the same as when she was at her peak. It could even be said that she had made some progress. Baidu search Xiao 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 Shua www.aichux. After exploring the passageway for a while, she retreated. There's no way to fight. The two high-level nether beasts at the entrance of the spatial passageway are the two high-level Saint Realm nether beasts that broke through the spatial passageway. At that time, the saints of the 9 regions joined forces and still couldn't defeat them in a short time. Now, I don't stand a chance at all. Then forget it. Let's continue to explore other places. If we don't find anything, we'll return. Night Sorrow said. If things were impossible, Night Sorrow would not force it. After that, Night Sorrow and she changed their direction and continued to explore the passageway. Next, the two of them saw more fallen saints, but nothing was left behind. Their weapons, storage rings, and even their saint crystals had disappeared. It's the same for 2 saints in a row. They had the aura of the 9-domain world on their bodies. After they were killed, their saint crystals were taken away as if they were harvesting materials. The other party is very cruel, she said. It's possible. Low-level saints are the materials. Yi Shang recalled Wu Lingfei's words. Who would be so generous as to use the saints of our 9-domain world as materials? She was shocked by her own words because this conclusion was too terrifying. Let's not talk about this for now, let's continue. Night Sorrow was also shocked by this conclusion. He then observed the Nihility Fate Pearl in his divine sea. He knew that if he refined the Nihility Fate Pearl, he would have a place to settle down. Even if there was a war, he would not be afraid. The two of them continued to cultivate as they moved forward. After half a month, she entered the level of a 3-star saint. Night Sorrow's cultivation also improved greatly during the consolidation. After she entered the level of a 3-star saint, Night Sorrow stopped moving forward. Even if she did not say anything, Night Sorrow knew that she wanted to stabilize her cultivation. She stabilized her cultivation for 2 days. She looked at Night Sorrow and asked for his essence. The process was painful and happy for her. After that, she used the energy of the Wind Yuan body to help Night Sorrow nourish his body and energy. Night Sorrow, you're like this now. It's a test for your future fiancé. I don't believe that they can do it if I can't. She did not care about any shame in front of Night Sorrow. Since the matter had already happened, there was no point in putting on a fake appearance. She had the mental state of a saint and was very open-minded about things. You're alone. There are 3 of them. Currently, 2 of them have cultivated to the pinnacle. It's nothing. Besides, I pity them. Night Sorrow took a sip of tea and went to meditate and cultivate. Shen Song looked at Night Sorrow's figure. She was very angry because Night Sorrow's words implied that his fiancé needed pity, but she did not. Sighing, she went to meditate and cultivate. She understood that she was just a subdued servant, a servant girl. Night Sorrow treated her like this was already very good. After resting for 2 days, Night Sorrow and she continued to move forward. Night Sorrow and she were shocked by the situation near the entrance of the Netherworld. There were Netherworld beasts everywhere, and there were 2 saints among them. In such a situation, the 2 could not get close. After moving some distance, Night Sorrow and she entered the time-space treasure pagoda. Night Sorrow looked at she and said, "They want to take over the supreme river space. Should I not keep it a secret and bring all the saints of the 9 domains here to fight and kill them?" No. This space has the Netherworld attribute. The Netherworld beasts are compatible with the attribute here, and their combat power is increased. The people of the 9 domains world are suppressed. We will be at a disadvantage if we fight here. F***ck. In ancient times, the supreme river space did not exist. Our ancestors would not be at a disadvantage if they fought here. But now, it's different. Night Sorrow lamented. Night Sorrow, I feel that this ancient supreme river battlefield might be related to Clear Sky City. Could it be that the supreme river battlefield is below Clear Sky City? She suggested a bold idea. After hearing She's words, Night Sorrow stood up and paced back and forth, thinking. He felt that She's idea was very possible. The supreme river battlefield of the ancient investiture of the gods was an ancient battlefield. 2 royal cities disappeared at the same time. Clear Sky City also appeared in the Qingtian domain, and Haohai City was not far from Dongshang City. Seeing Yi Shang frowning and thinking, she said, "I'm just saying it casually. Don't listen." She didn't want Yi Shang to be troubled. You make a lot of sense. Night Sorrow took out the map that Wu Lingfei had given him, and then took out the map of the 9 domains world. He marked the location of the Eastern Xian Domain's Medicine Valley's passage and Dongshang City's passage. After comparing them, he made a mark on the map that Wu Lingfei had taken out. He knew 2 points and wanted to verify the 3rd. This was not difficult for Night Sorrow. Seeing the location that he had verified, Night Sorrow sighed. She poured Night Sorrow a glass of water and asked Night Sorrow what he was doing. After drinking the water and glancing at Shi, Night Sorrow pointed at the map and said, "Your speculation is correct. Clear Sky City and the Supreme River Space are connected. The corresponding point should be here. Even if there is a deviation, it should be in this area." After hearing Night Sorrow's words, Shi was surprised. "Is that so?" "Indeed. I originally planned to go back after investigating a bit more, but with this discovery, I have to go and take a look," Night Sorrow said after looking at the map again. "Then let's go and take a look. Fortunately, my soul power is still at its peak. If we investigate carefully, there won't be any great danger," Shi said. "Just be careful. Maybe we can find something," Night Sorrow said. "If we find something, maybe we really have a chance to enter Clear Sky City in advance." Shi was a little excited because that was the real big opportunity. Opportunities are fought for by individuals, but the crisis of the 9 domains is for everyone. I still want to know the secret of the investiture of the gods. Will it threaten the current 9 domains world? Night Sorrow said. Chapter 766. A genius remembers love in 1 second. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. You don't have anyone you care about, so some of your thoughts are different from mine. This is nothing. I care about too many people, so my pursuit is different. Seeing that she was a little embarrassed, Night Sorrow said with a smile. You don't have to cover up for me. I am indeed inferior. She looked at Night Sorrow and said. Then, the two of them advanced toward the area that Night Sorrow had marked out. However, it would take some time. Along the way, they killed and investigated. With the formation of the desolate immortal body, Night Sorrow's combat power skyrocketed. He could even kill a mid-level honorable nether beast. Even a high-level honorable nether beast could not do anything to him. She was shocked because Night Sorrow had the potential to become an invincible honorable. Moreover, he was the king of invincible honorables. Without any high-level saint-level nether beasts blocking their way, Night Sorrow and she were able to move forward without any difficulty. However, as they got closer to the predetermined area, Night Sorrow also found a problem. A spatial storm appeared out of nowhere, and there were cracks in the sky. There really is a problem. This spatial storm is the same as the one outside Haotian City. She said. No, according to my estimation, there are still 200 miles to the corresponding location of Haotian City. Even if we can move forward now, we can't go that far. In the end, all our efforts will be in vain. Night Sorrow said. Then what should we do? The power of the spatial turbulence is too strong. She observed and said. This is a big formation set up by someone. However, the foundation of the formation is very deep. It is difficult to figure out and break. It can be said that it is beyond the scope of my understanding. Night Sorrow said. You can tell. She looked at Night Sorrow and asked. The spatial turbulence and spatial storm's natural rotation and trajectory are not like this. I can tell from this point. However, the person who set up the formation borrowed the power of heaven and earth. Therefore, the power of the formation is what we see. Night Sorrow said. She nodded. Although she wanted to investigate, it was impossible for her to do so at the moment. The spatial turbulence was extremely violent, and it was not something that could be resisted by human strength. Night Sorrow planned to look around the spatial turbulence, but he was disappointed. This was because the area sealed by the spatial turbulence was like the canyon. It was completely sealed, and there was no edge to explore. This formation is beginning to lose its balance because of the increase in the crack in the sky. However, it will take time for the formation to be destroyed. Let's go. In the future, we'll just visit when we're free. Love Go Little Say Kunite Sorrow found a secluded place and set up an illusion array, a killing array, and a teleportation array. She didn't understand. She didn't know what Night Sorrow was doing. Looking at she's hesitant expression, Night Sorrow said, It's millions of miles from the spatial passage in the Medicine Valley to here. It's a waste of time to fly back and forth. I have a small teleportation crystal here. It's not a waste to use it here. After everything was done, Night Sorrow and she entered the space-time pagoda to rest. Night Sorrow planned to rest for a while before leaving. This was how it was, and there was no point in continuing. It was better to look elsewhere. Just as Night Sorrow entered the space-time pagoda, a violent fluctuation came from the Night Moon Sea. Then, a middle-aged man wearing the Night Moon King battle suit and a purple gold crown walked out. The middle-aged man was well-built, and his eyes were bright and full of spirit. When he opened and closed his eyes, there was a flash of light. He stood there with the air of a king. As the middle-aged man appeared, 5 or 6 people came out one after another behind him. Baidu search AI go female sign shao say www.aichuxs. So not long after they stood still, someone came. It was Yi Ling Lan. He had come to the Night Moon Sea to deal with some matters and had sensed the energy fluctuation here. Yiling Lan greets brother Invincible King, royal uncles, Prince Wuyo, and young concubine Wuyo. Yiling Lan bowed to them. Where's King Ling Xie? The person in front asked. He was the current ruler of the Night Moon Kingdom, Invincible King Yiling Huan. Therefore, even if the emperor came out, he would still stand behind him. Then, Yiling Lan explained the current situation of the Night Moon Sea and Yiling Xie's whereabouts. Elder Ling Lan, where is Xiao now? A slender woman with shoulder-length black hair and a face full of grace and elegance asked. Young concubine, young master left the Night Moon Kingdom 2 months ago. I don't know where he is now, but he left me a message crystal and said that I can crush it if there's an emergency. Should I crush it now? Yiling Lan took out the message crystal and was about to crush it. He was too excited that the Yi clan had finally returned. No need. Send someone to inform King Ling Xie to come back. We'll talk about Xiao later, Yiling Huan said. Your Highness, young master thinks of himself as Night Sorrow and is unwilling to change his name, Yiling Lan said. At the same time, he explained why Night Sorrow was unwilling to change his name. Then don't change it. A man of Night Moon must be responsible. Those 2 guards are worth remembering, Yiling Huan said after hearing Yiling Lan's words. Yiling Lan brought a group of people to a mansion in the Night Moon Kingdom to rest. He couldn't let others know that the Yi clan had returned. Then, he went to inform Yiling Xie. After sitting for a while, Yiling Huan stood up. I think everyone wants to see the Night Moon now. Let's cover up and go take a look. Then, the group left the Night Moon Kingdom and walked towards the Night Moon City. Night Moon City had recovered very well and was very prosperous. Yiling Huan and the others watched from inside the city after calling for a beast carriage. Unspecified currency, the only K, positive H. Version, S1 and R asterisk is a pirate plus T version, ha. Night Moon is doing well under the leadership of Night Sorrow. An old man with a golden crown said. He was the 3rd son of the Moon Emperor, Night Divine Thunder, and his title was Divine Thunder Emperor. At this moment, the beast carriage stopped and the driver opened the door. Night Sorrow is our young master, not the brat you all are talking about. Get off. I don't want to do business with you. This scene stunned everyone in the carriage. I told you to get off. The driver said angrily. We just said something casually. Do you have to be like this? Night Divine Thunder said gloomily. Of course. No matter if it's the Night Moon now or the Night Moon in the future, no one can insult our young master. No one can. Get off. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Don't think that your cultivation is high. We Night Moon people are not afraid. The driver took out the sword at his waist. You're strong. Let's get off. Night Divine Thunder took a deep breath and said. Humph. I'm not strong, but our Night Moon has a strong young master. Young master said that on the Night Moon, the sky belongs to us Night Moon people. The driver drove the beast carriage away. 8th uncle. How do you feel? Yiling Huan looked at Night Divine Thunder and asked. He's very popular. When will I meet this domineering brat? Night Divine Thunder had mixed feelings. Chapter 767. Genius 1 second. Remember love go divided by Xiao. We provide you with interesting novels to read. Then, the few of them casually looked around the streets of Night Moon. Baidu search AI go female sign Xiao say www.aichuxs. Then, the few of them entered a tea house. There were whispers in the tea house. They were all talking about Night Sorrow, but no one mentioned the name Night Sorrow. They all called him Young Master Shang. Hearing everyone talking about how Night Sorrow had single-handedly annihilated the cities of the various dynasties. He had killed so many of them that they had to compromise in the end. Princess Consort Wu Yu's eyes turned red, and tears started to fall from her eyes. Qing. Everything is in the past. In the future, there will be father and the various emperors. There will be no need for the child to continue suffering. Yi Wuyo, who was wearing a silver crown and white robe, said softly. He had a straight nose and sword-like eyebrows that reached his temples. He went hunting in his teens to make a living. Who knows how much he has suffered? Yu Qing wiped her tears and said. Sharpness comes from sharpening. This is his destiny. However, the current situation is good. It is good for a descendant whose talent far surpasses ours to be sharpened like this. Another old man said. He was the 8th son of the Moon Emperor, Yi Shenquang. His title was God-Crazy Emperor. The few of them quietly listened to the discussions. Finally, Yi Shenlei muttered, "Why do I feel like there is nothing that kid doesn't dare to do?" Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation. Because there were people talking about how Night Sorrow was not afraid of Qin Yuan. A martial artist must have a fearless heart. He has not been nurtured by his family. To reach this step today, his state of mind and temperament should have been tempered greatly. Yi Linghuan said as he took a sip of tea. Wu Yu, I want to see our future daughters-in-law. Yu Qing looked at Yi Wuyo and asked. Yu Qing, wait for a moment. Let's wait for your uncle Ling Xia and Wang Wang to come back. We'll take a look together. Yi Linghuan nodded at Yu Qing. Afterward, the few of them sat on the teleportation circle and looked at the other cities. Night Moon's recovery made them very happy. Baidu search AI go female sign shao say www.aichuxs. Xiong. When they returned to the Night Moon, Yi Lingxia and Yi Linglan had returned. Yi Lingxia was very excited. He hugged Yi Linghuan and then greeted the others. After sitting down, Yi Linghuan explained the current situation. Yi Linghuan and the others already knew a little about the current situation. Now, they just needed to know the details. Does Night Sorrow mean that he will find a way to deal with the saint from the 7-star dynasty? Yi Linghuan asked in surprise. Yes. He said that we don't need to beg for help. He has a strong personality and can't stand to see people beg for help. That's why he doesn't want us Night Moon people to beg for help, Yi Lingxia said. This king wants to fight the 7-star dynasty. It seems that he doesn't need to. Let's wait for him to come back. Yi Linghuan said after thinking for a while. He knew that Night Sorrow wouldn't do anything he wasn't sure about. I don't know where that kid ran off to. The young master of Night Moon actually disappeared. This is the first time in the history of Night Moon, Night God Thunder said. Third uncle, which of the things that Yi Shang has done is not unique in Yi Yu's history? Yi Lingxia asked. Your cultivation is not bad. Invincible Saint Realm. Night God Thunder looked at Yi Lingxia and asked. I have a good grandnephew who gave me space crystals. That's why I strengthened my bloodline talent to the limit, Yi Lingxia said. He gave all his resources to his family. In the future, he can only go to his family to strengthen his bloodline talent, Night God Kuang said with a sigh. Night Sorrow has the Qing Tian region's time and space pagoda. His bloodline talent can be continuously strengthened. That's not a problem. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken up his cultivation resources, Yi Lingxia said. Then Yi Lingxia asked about the situation of the other people in Night Moon, including his father and the previous ruler of Night Moon, Emperor Shen Xian. Yi Linghuan told him that some people were still cultivating. After he came out of seclusion, he took a few people to be the vanguard. When the battle started, Night Moon's powerful people would appear. Let's not talk about this anymore. Let's go to the city in the sky and see this king's 3 granddaughters-in-law, Yilinghuan said. Then the group followed Yilingxia to Night Moon City. It was still evening, and the members of the god-slaying team were still cultivating. Yilingxia led the group directly to Night Sorrow's residence. Yilinglan introduced Papa Gu, who was cultivating in the courtyard, to Yilinghuan and the others. Knowing that Papa Gu was the benefactor who had raised Night Sorrow, Night Moon's people all cupped their hands in greeting. Then Yilinglan introduced Yilinghuan and the others to Papa Gu. I'm sorry. My abilities are limited. I didn't take good care of Night Sorrow, Papa Gu said apologetically. Please don't say that. Night Sorrow's achievements today are closely related to your education. You are our benefactor. Yi Wuyo pulled his wife and bowed to Papa Gu again. Not only are you and your wife's benefactor, but you are also our dynasty's benefactor, Yilinghuan said. At this time, Wu Lingfei appeared and stood in front of the residence's door. Golden Phoenix. Yilinghuan cupped his hands in greeting. You're back. It's good that you're back. Wu Lingfei said. Then everyone sat down and chatted casually. Wu Lingfei knew these people from Night Moon's dynasty, so their conversation was more casual. While they were chatting, Sikong Chuyu, Aoi, and Yang Lei returned from outside. The moment they entered the residence, they were stunned. They didn't understand what was going on. Ha! Back then, this king represented Night Sorrow's parents at your engagement ceremony. Now that his parents are here, even an ugly daughter-in-law has to meet her parents-in-law. Besides, you are all outstanding. Yi Ling smiled wickedly and introduced them to everyone. Our son has good taste. Yu Qing looked at Sikong Chuyu and the other two with a smile in her eyes. She was very satisfied. Our Night Moon's men all have one wife. He's good, 3 at once. Yi Wuyo muttered. This was indeed the Night Moon's dynasty's tradition. All the emperors and princes had one wife. What's wrong? If you have the ability, go find one too. Are you not satisfied with your son's ability? Come, sit with mother. Yu Qing looked at Yi Wuyo with dissatisfaction. Then she waved at Sikong Chuyu and the other two. Sikong Chuyu and the other two shyly called her mother. After the engagement ceremony, they couldn't call her auntie anymore. You're back. Do you have any plans? At this time, Wu Lingfei spoke about serious matters. I'm not afraid of you laughing at this. We still want to see what Night Sorrow has to say. Yilinghuan thought for a moment and said his opinion. That's for the best. Actually, in terms of connections, Night Sorrow's connections are broader than yours. If he wants to fight, there are many people who are willing to help him, Wu Lingfei said with a smile. At this time, Yu Qing pulled Sikong Chuyu and the other two to the side and asked about Night Sorrow. Since Night Sorrow's 1-month birthday, she hadn't seen Night Sorrow. She missed him so much that she wanted to know more from Sikong Chuyu and the others. Chapter 768. Geniuses remember love in 1 second. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. After listening to Wu Lingfei's explanation, Yilinghuan and the others understood that the 9 zones were in chaos. Some saints had already appeared. If the Night Moon dynasty wanted to take revenge, the most direct obstacle was the 7-star saint of the 7-star dynasty. Also, if the Night Moon dynasty doesn't start a war, they won't dare to attack the Night Moon dynasty, said Wu Lingfei. Yilinghuan nodded. He knew that Night Sorrow had traded his life for some time to rest. Lord Golden Phoenix, Night Moon can't tolerate their sneak attack. We must fight, said Night God Thunder. I'm not trying to persuade you to stop. Night Sorrow won't stop either. The main thing is that we need a thorough plan. We need to know the recent movements of the 7-star dynasty, the Green Abyss dynasty, the Red Leaf dynasty, and the Golden Dragon King dynasty. We need to know if there are any hidden saints, said Wu Lingfei. Yi Linghuan nodded. Night Moon wanted to take revenge and rise. They couldn't afford to make any mistakes. Since they were going to attack, they had to make sure nothing went wrong. All right, I'll be in seclusion in the pavilion in the back. If there's anything, let me know. Wu Lingfei stood up and nodded to the people of the Night Moon dynasty. Then she left Night Sorrow's residence. Our Night Sorrow can't grow without Lord Golden Phoenix's help. We need to remember this, said Night God Kuang. The others nodded. The Night Moon people were vengeful, but they also wouldn't forget kindness. I wonder when that Night Sorrow kid will come back, muttered Night God Thunder. He was the most short-tempered of the emperors of the Night Moon dynasty. Third brother, your temper is getting worse, said Night God Kuang as he glanced at Night God Thunder. Your Highness and the emperors will stay in the city in the sky. There is a newly built pavilion there. Yi Linglan, who had been standing to the side, said. Yi Linghuan nodded. Then make the arrangements. As for the other two imperial uncles, I intend to expel Yuexiang City from the Night Moon dynasty and erase them from the Yi clan's records. Their existence is the shame of the Night Moon dynasty. Night God Thunder and Night God Kuang nodded. Currently, Yi Linghuan was in charge of Night Moon. He asked this to give face to his elders because these people were the descendants of the Moon Emperor's fifth son. They were related to Night God Thunder and Night God Kuang. Having made his decision, Yi Linghuan immediately arranged for Yi Lingxia to handle this matter. Afterwards, he and Yi Linglan went to their new residence. Ai chu chu shua 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 w, ai chu x. Calm however, Yi Wuyo and Yu Qing didn't leave. Yi Wuyo drank tea with old Gu, Yu Qing chatted with Sikong Chuyu, Yang Lei, and Aoi. Hearing that Night Sorrow had been ambushed and injured by a high-level venerable, Yi Wuyo's hand trembled. They really bullied our Night Moon. It's fine. Night Sorrow's injuries weren't serious. Later, the Tianfeng dynasty was annihilated, the Silver Devil clan was destroyed, and the Western Azure sect suffered a heavy blow. However, I heard from Auntie Fei that the Western Nether region has a very powerful saint. Only Lord Long Xianxing can restrain them, said Aoi. My son should have been the high and mighty young master of Night Moon. Now, he dares to bite any cat or dog. It's my incompetence as a father. Yi Wuyo stood up, the veins on his clenched fists throbbing. It was clear that he was very angry. Father, Night Sorrow has never relied on his status to do anything. He is the Deputy Valley Master of the Medicine Valley, but no matter how difficult it was for him, he never asked the Medicine Valley to do anything. After becoming the young master of the Tianji Tower, he also never relied on the prestige of the Tianjin Tower, said Yang Lei. He has a backbone, but this made him suffer a lot. Yu Qing's voice was a little choked up. I think he will be back soon. In the past, he never went out for such a long time, said Aoi after thinking for a while. Then, Yi Linglan came to call Yi Wuyo and arranged their accommodation. However, Yu Qing didn't want to go. She wanted to chat with Sikong Chuyu and the others. Elder Linglan, we will have dinner with my parents today. Later, my parents will rest here. We will go to their accommodation tomorrow, said Aoi to Yi Linglan. Yi Linglan nodded and left. He knew that Aoi and the others would make the arrangements. Night Sorrow and Yin Shi fought during the day and rested at night to cultivate. Although they didn't gain much, they still had a lot of materials for refining pills and weapons. This time, it's not bad. We got 2 sacred-grade weapons and a lot of spirit stones. However, for you, we don't have any suitable weapons or protective treasures, said Yin Shi. I don't need them. Night Sorrow waved the spear in his hand and moved the space-time pagoda in his sleeve. As for weapons and protective treasures, Night Sorrow didn't need them. Looking at Night Sorrow's reincarnation spear and spacetime pagoda, she nodded. Perhaps Night Sorrow was the only one in the 9 regions world who dared to say that he didn't need sacred-grade weapons and protective treasures. Looking at She's envious eyes, Night Sorrow shook his head. He still had a mid-level sacred treasure that he hadn't used in the Medicine Valley. As they moved forward, the two of them got closer to the space passage in the Medicine Valley. Night Sorrow's cultivation of the myriad Tao Tome had also improved a lot. Night Sorrow planned to stabilize his vital energy cultivation. He didn't even plan to use the Dragon Spirit Pill while he was a level 4 supremacy. The main reason was that his cultivation had improved too quickly. He had to stabilize it properly. Night Sorrow didn't rush Shi. Instead, he hoped that Shi would be more stable. Shi had already recovered to a 3-star saint for a while. As long as she became a 4-star saint, she wouldn't have to worry about the scourge of a 7-star saint. She was very happy that Night Sorrow didn't rush her. This was also a sign that Night Sorrow cared about her. A month later, Night Sorrow and Shi returned to the entrance of the Medicine Valley region. The two of them once again started killing the nether beasts that had gathered. Without sacred-grade nether beasts, Night Sorrow and Shi didn't feel any pressure at all. It wasn't even a challenge. After killing the nether beasts, Night Sorrow found a secret place to set up a teleportation array. It was a teleportation array that corresponded to the teleportation array in the space storm. This way, they could teleport between the two places and save a lot of time. They didn't need to fly. After setting up the teleportation array, Night Sorrow set up an illusion array and a killing array outside. This was to prevent the teleportation array from being destroyed by the nether beasts. After hiding the teleportation array, Night Sorrow set up a sealing array outside the space tunnel. Then, he added an illusion array outside the sealing array. With both sides having sealing arrays, and with the concealment of the illusion array, it would be extremely difficult for the nether beasts to enter the 9 zones world. With a protective shield around Shi, Night Sorrow passed through the space tunnel. Without breaking the seal, they returned to the 9 zones world. The aura of the 9 zones world is so comfortable. It's our origin, Shi said. Free fee for F reading novels unspecified currency 1, yes, the 9 zones world is our origin. It's our home. If we go to other spaces, we'll be outsiders. We won't have a sense of belonging. Night Sorrow felt the same way. Then, Shi asked Night Sorrow about his future plans. Chapter 769. Genius 1 second. Remember love go/little. I will provide you with interesting novels to read. When he reached the place where he entered the void space, Night Sorrow realized that the environment had changed. The original space tunnel had become a deep mountain wall. Night Sorrow used the space rend. After tearing the space apart, he searched for the void space in the space turbulence, but he could not find it. This made Night Sorrow feel very helpless. If he did not refine the void fate pearl, it would be very difficult to find the void space that was completely sealed, let alone control it. Refining the void fate pearl was the key to solving this problem. After leaving the space turbulence, Night Sorrow put Shi into the time pagoda and flew back to Danding City. After being away for more than 3 months, Night Sorrow was in a hurry to go back. Otherwise, Sikong Chiyu, Aoi, and Yang Lei would be worried. When he reached the teleportation circle of Danding City, Night Sorrow stood in front of the Golden Fire Palace for a while. He knew that if Yang Yu was inside, he would come out. If not, he was not there. After waiting for a while and seeing that there was no movement, Night Sorrow got on the teleportation circle and started to teleport. After a few times, Night Sorrow returned to the city in the sky. He walked out of the teleportation circle and walked towards the arena. When he arrived at the arena, Night Sorrow was stunned. He saw a woman he did not know, but he felt very close to her. January 1st. Original FW, it plus his $Z are both FW pirated versions. Yu Qing, who was sitting at the edge of the arena and watching the members of the god-slaying team cultivate, stood up. She looked at Knight Sorrow, who was wearing a white battle robe. His face was very similar to Yi Wuyo's face. She knew who he was. "Are you Shao, er?" Yu Qing's voice was trembling. "I am Knight Sorrow. May I ask who you are?" Knight Sorrow looked at Yu Qing and asked. "Knight Sorrow, she's your mother." Sikong Chuyu and Yang Lei came over and said, "Mother." Knight Sorrow looked at Yu Qing, his eyes filled with joy and shock. He didn't know what to say. "Mother knows your name is Knight Sorrow, but your nickname is Shao, er." Yu Qing's eyes were filled with tears. Knight Sorrow greets mother. Knight Sorrow pulled his robe and knelt down. With a wave of her sleeve, Yu Qing blocked Knight Sorrow's bent body. How could she let Knight Sorrow kneel? She knew that Knight Sorrow had to kneel on one knee to become a disciple. "It's your mother's fault. I've made you suffer all these years." Yu Qing stepped forward and hugged Knight Sorrow. "Mother, I've been fine all these years. I'm really happy to know that you and father are doing well. I'm really afraid that I'm an orphan." Love go little say, Chu Knight Sorrow's nose was a little sour. "No, your father and I didn't want to abandon you. We had no choice. That was the only way to protect you." Later on, we asked Uncle Wang Xie to search for you in the vicinity of Beiyu City, but there was no news. Yu Qing's face was full of apology. She felt very sorry for Knight Sorrow. "Father Goose said that when he found me, there were guards who died in battle by my side. I didn't feel inferior because I knew that I wasn't abandoned. It was just that my parents couldn't find me, so I had to work hard to find my way home." Knight Sorrow said. His hand, which was being held by Yu Qing, was trembling. He had been determined to find his family for many years. He had always been very strong. Now, that strength was being torn apart by his family. "In the future, we'll be together as a family. We'll fight side by side." Yi Wuyo came. Beside him were Yi Linghuan and Night Moon's emperors. Originally, they were arranging the battle plans. Then, they found out about the situation here. "Shao, this is your father and grandfather. The other two are the Divine Thunder Emperor and the Divine Madness Emperor." Love go little say, Chu Yu Qing introduced them. Knight Sorrow wanted to pay his respects, but Yi Wuyo stopped him. He was now filled with guilt. How could he refuse Knight Sorrow's greeting? Then, the group went to Knight Sorrow's residence. Yu Qing pulled Knight Sorrow to sit beside her. She kept asking about Knight Sorrow's life. Sikong Chuyu, Yang Lei, and Aoi personally cooked and prepared the dishes. Then, they all ate dinner together. "Knight Sorrow, in terms of seniority, I'm your great-uncle. But in Night Moon City, because I called you a brat, I was yelled at," Night God Thunder said gloomily. "Great-uncle, in Night Moon City, who dared to yell at you?" Knight Sorrow stood up and poured wine for everyone. "Your great-uncle talked about Night Sorrow in Night Moon City, but there were people from Night Moon who didn't want to listen. In the end, we were all kicked off the beast carriage. This shows that you did well. It shows that the people of Night Moon acknowledge you. We are all happy," Night God said with a wild laugh. "It's my fault. I made great-uncle uncomfortable. I'll drink as an apology." Knight Sorrow took the bowl and drank it in one gulp. "Shao, slow down," Yu Qing said when she saw Knight Sorrow drink a bowl. "Don't worry about that. Knight Sorrow has been drinking wine like water since he was young." Papa Goose smiled and nodded at Yu Qing. They didn't drink much during dinner. Then, Yilinghuan asked Night Sorrow what he thought of the big picture. Yishang's intention was to stabilize the situation first, and then deal with his enemies one by one. Okay, then we'll do as you say. Originally, we wanted to deal with the Tianfeng dynasty first. Now that the Tianfeng dynasty no longer exists, it doesn't matter which one we deal with first, Yilinghuan said. After drinking, Yilinghuan and the two emperors left. Because today was Night Sorrow's day to meet his parents, they had a lot to talk about. Under Yang Lei's suggestion, they went to the edge of the lake. Papa Gu couldn't fly, so it was Night Sorrow who brought Papa Gu down. When they reached the lake, Aoi began to make tea, and everyone chatted casually. Mother, why didn't you bring little sister out? Night Sorrow asked Yu Qing. Shao, you might not know, but this time, we came out to prepare for the battle. So your sister is cultivating with the Xinhua Emperor, who is recuperating, and we didn't let her follow. Yu Qing said with a smile. Qing, let's call the child by his name in the future. Shao's name is in the past. Now, our child who survived and was reborn is called Night Sorrow. Yi Wuyo looked at his wife and said. Then we'll do as you say. Yu Qing nodded. Night Sorrow, in the future, if there's anything, tell father. Don't take it all on yourself. Let's not talk about father's strength, but our Night Moon people dare to fight against the world. Yi Wuyo patted Night Sorrow's shoulder and said. After not taking care of his son for 20 years, Yi Wuyo didn't want his son to be under any pressure. Father, mother, I've grown up. You don't have to worry too much. Night Sorrow enjoyed this kind of warmth. After chatting for a long time, the group went back to rest. Night Sorrow sent Papa Gu to the door of the pavilion. Father, it's been hard on you all these years. Although I found my parents, you will always be my father. Father understands. In the future, I will cultivate when I'm free. When I'm free, I will go to the lake to fish. When you have a child, I will help you take care of the child. Father's shoulders can still carry a child. Papa Gu said with a smile. Chapter 770. Genius remembers love in 1 second/small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. You reap what you sow, who can you blame? It's good enough that we didn't kill him. Mr. Gu said angrily. He was angry at Qin Chen's ingratitude and that Qin Chen had tricked him in Night Sorrow. We didn't kill him because he's also a pitiful person. If we cripple his cultivation, he won't be able to cause any more trouble. We'll let him live an ordinary life. From now on, we'll be passers-by and have nothing to do with him, Night Sorrow said to Mr. Gu. Mr. Gu nodded. He understood that this was the end of Qin Chen's matter. His path and fate had been set. There was no possibility of him causing any more trouble. Seeing that Mr. Gu went to rest, Night Sorrow returned to the main building. There were only servants in the main building. Sikong Chuyu and the other two had returned to their attic to cultivate. Now the mansion had been expanded and an attic had been added. There were also more servants. The two maids who ran out with Mr. Gu also came here. The main reason was that they didn't have a good place to go. After letting the servants rest, Night Sorrow entered the secret cultivation room. After entering the secret cultivation room, Night Sorrow flashed into the space-time pagoda. Look at the main page. Chapter section, Upper X. Seeing Night Sorrow enter, she stopped cultivating. She stood up and tidied her skirt. Not bad. Congratulations on meeting your parents. Baidu search love go xiao shua www.aichux.com. I'm happy today. Do you want a drink? Night Sorrow sat at the table and asked. She nodded and sat opposite Night Sorrow. I've always thought that white hair is ugly, but it's not bad on you. It looks different and has a different charm, Night Sorrow said as he poured the wine. If it were someone else, I'd really want to say that I'm really blind. My silver hair is produced by my bloodline. I was born with silver hair. She glanced at Night Sorrow. In fact, the word really blind was meant for Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow didn't care. As long as she didn't talk nonsense on serious matters, he wouldn't care about these small matters. After drinking a jug of wine, Yi Shang went to meditate and cultivate. Right now, he was consolidating his true qi cultivation and working hard to raise the cultivation of the myriad Dao's treasured tome. This was because the next level of the myriad Dao's treasured tome would be the fourth level of the spirit refinement realm. It was the middle stage of the spirit refinement realm. Seeing that Yi Shang was cultivating diligently, She also began to meditate. She also wanted to improve her cultivation and restore it to the realm of a 4-star saint as soon as possible. After cultivating the basics for an entire night, Night Sorrow left the Spacetime Pagoda. After leaving the secret cultivation room, he went to the courtyard to cultivate his spear arts. Night Sorrow's spear cultivation was to find the feeling and cultivate the compatibility of the space splitter spear. Aoi then fetched water for Night Sorrow to wash his face. When Night Sorrow was washing up, Yi Wuyo and Yu Qing came over. Father, Mother. Yi Shang wiped his face and greeted the two of them. You're cultivating your spear so early? Yu Qing asked when she saw Night Sorrow's space splitter spear beside him. I'm just stretching my body and cultivating the compatibility of my spear. Night Sorrow put the space splitter spear back into the holster on his back. Night Sorrow, the 2 spears on your back are high-grade spirit weapons. Can you use them? Yi Wuyo asked Night Sorrow. One is a black iron spear that I've been using since I started hunting. It later became a high-grade spirit weapon, so it's still compatible. The other one I prepared for my soul doppelganger. I usually use it to cultivate the compatibility. Night Sorrow said to Yi Wuyo. He didn't need to hide anything from his parents. Oh right, Mother, I have a face-preserving pill here. Take it. Yang Lei took out the face-preserving pill that Night Sorrow gave her. It was the last one. Mother doesn't need it. Take it. Yu Qing said with a smile. After a few days of interaction, she liked her 3 daughters-in-law very much. 9th senior sister, Mother is a 7th level venerable. Why would I need a face-preserving pill? Night Sorrow said with a smile. Ah. Mother's cultivation is so high. Sikong Chuyu and the other 2 were shocked when they heard Night Sorrow say Yu Qing's cultivation. Your mother is the eldest daughter of Beiyu City. She was famous back then. Yi Wuyo said with a smile. Mother, you are of the earth attribute. What weapon do you use? Night Sorrow asked Yu Qing. Other women usually use long swords. However, Beiyu City's inheritance is saber techniques. It's a war saber. Yu Qing said with a smile. It was very rare for women to practice saber techniques. Then I have a gift for Mother. Night Sorrow said and took out what he had obtained from the small space in Taichuan. This aura. It's a sacred weapon. That crystal is an origin stone. Yi Wuyo said in surprise when he saw Night Sorrow take out the 5-foot war saber and the yellow crystal. Father is right. I obtained it by chance. It suits Mother. Night Sorrow was very happy. To him, it was a treasure of little value. Now, it was very suitable for his mother. Yu Qing looked at Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow, these are all treasures. You can use them to exchange for what you need. Night Sorrow shook his head. I have everything I need. You can take it. There are also 3 dragon spirit pills. You can use them to cultivate. Night Sorrow had been providing resources to many people. How could he be short of his parents? Night Sorrow gave Yi Wuyo and Yu Qing a bottle of life essence liquid and origin essence liquid. He also gave them some top-grade crystals. Yi Wuyo sighed. He was happy, but at the same time, he felt guilty. Night Sorrow had taken out a lot. To Night Sorrow, being able to help his parents was the happiest thing. Then, Night Sorrow took his parents and Sikong Chuyu to the training ground. Now, Sikong Chuyu, Aoi, and Yang Lei did not have to worry about increasing their cultivation. They just needed to work hard to stabilize their cultivation. After watching the members of the god-slaying team cultivate for a while, Night Sorrow took his parents for a walk around the city in the sky. He also went to the residence that Yi Linglan had arranged for Yi Wuyo and his wife. Then, he went to the lake to cultivate. Yi Wuyo and Yu Qing, who did not follow Night Sorrow to the lake, sat on wooden chairs in the courtyard of their residence and talked. Qing. Our son is a person with great luck. Those who are related to him will receive some luck. When I was seriously injured back then, I thought that I would be like this for the rest of my life. With the help of our son's life essence liquid, not only did I solve the problem of my old injuries and life essence, but my cultivation also improved. You have the origin stone, so you will have a chance to enter the saint realm in the future, Yi Wuyo said. But this is equivalent to using his opportunity. What will happen to him in the future? Yu Qing was still worried about Night Sorrow. You have not reached the peak of the venerable realm and have not touched the domain of the power of rules, so you can't feel it. Our son has the power of rules. I didn't ask what the situation is, but it is definitely a good thing. Yi Wuyo nodded to Yu Qing. All these years, without the help of the family, it must have been very, very difficult for him to make a name for himself. He fought step by step to get to where he is now. Yi Yue will be fighting next, but he still can't stop. I don't know what father plans to do next. Yu Qing lowered her head in thought. Chapter 771. Genius remembers love in 1 second/small. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. X forever, asterisk for a long time you feed a look at Z small, say after Night Sorrow communicated with Jianyu for a while, he started to cultivate the spatial crack. He used the pressure of the spatial turbulent storm to stabilize his cultivation. Then, he sped up his cultivation of the myriad Tao tome. At noon, when Night Sorrow finished recovering and was about to use spatial rend again, Yi Linghuan came. Yi Linghuan came alone. What are you practicing? Yi Linghuan asked Night Sorrow. Spatial fissure, then use the pressure in the turbulent flow of space to stabilize your cultivation, Night Sorrow said. Then continue to cultivate. Yi Linghuan nodded. He also wanted to see to what extent his only grandson, Night Moon's only young master, had cultivated the Night Moon dynasty's innate skill. Nodding at Yi Linghuan, Night Sorrow executed the spatial rend and entered the spatial turbulence with the reincarnation spear. Yi Linghuan also entered the spatial turbulence and followed behind Night Sorrow. He wanted to get a closer look at Night Sorrow's situation. Following behind Night Sorrow, Yi Linghuan was shocked. This was because Night Sorrow was moving very quickly through the spatial turbulence. He had to increase his speed to keep up. Night Sorrow's mutated protective shield directly cut forward. When they encountered a more violent spatial turbulence, Night Sorrow would shoot out with his spear, almost not slowing down their advance. After traveling 25 kilometers, Night Sorrow felt that he had expended a lot of energy. So, he used spatial crack to cut open space and returned to the 9 domains world. Yi Linghuan also came out of the spatial turbulence. There's no problem with your cultivation of spatial crack. When Grandpa was at your cultivation level, he couldn't do it at all. There's still a huge gap. With the innate skill, spatial crack, even if you can't win against others, it won't be a problem for you to retreat. Grandpa can rest assured, Yi Linghuan said. I also recently found the feeling. Grandpa, do you want a drink? Night Sorrow asked after returning to the wooden boat. Yiling smiled and nodded. He was very satisfied and appreciative of his grandson, Night Sorrow. While drinking, Yiling asked Night Sorrow about his future plans and his thoughts on Night Moon's revenge. Night Sorrow didn't say anything about Yin Shi. He only said that he hoped to buy some time so that he could deal with the 7-star saint. Yiling nodded. Night Moon also needed time. There were still some people in the family who were either recovering or cultivating. The more time passed, the more experts there would be in Night Moon. Love go go shao shua 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 w, ai chux. Calm currently, Night Moon's strength could defeat any dynasty. But in fact, as long as Night Moon returned and fought with any dynasty, the other dynasties would fight together. They wouldn't watch Night Moon's dynasty be defeated one by one. After drinking a jar of wine with Night Sorrow, Yiling left. Night Sorrow also returned to the Space-Time Treasure Pagoda. He planned to recover and continue cultivating. Your grandfather is very strong. Although he's only a 1-star saint, his aura is very sharp. Ordinary saints can't be compared to high-level saints. I reckon that ordinary 3-star saints aren't his match. Yin Shi said. Through Night Sorrow's soul power, she could clearly sense the situation outside. The problem of the 7-star saint still requires you to resolve it. Your side has a greater chance of success than my grandfather's side, said Yishan. Don't worry. Give me some time. I'll cultivate to 4-star saint. Then, dealing with a 5-star saint won't be a problem. I'm confident. Yin Shi said. She wasn't far from 4-star saint. The more time she had, the more her cultivation would recover. That's good. Call me if you need resources. We don't lack resources, Night Sorrow said as he clenched his fist. Yin Shi blushed because she was embarrassed. She still wanted Night Sorrow's essence and couldn't ask directly. Seeing you like this, I understand. All right. Since we're by the lake, it'll be more convenient for me to take a bath. I won't be tricked by your fragrance. Night Sorrow was very careful now. He was worried that he would be smelled by Yin Shi's fragrance and be discovered by the Sikong Chuyu and the other 2 girls. While obtaining Night Sorrow's essence, Yin Shi would also help Night Sorrow nourish his body and the energy in his body. It was a win-win situation. After recovering, Night Sorrow entered the lake to take a bath. Then, he continued to cultivate the spatial crack. After cultivating until evening, Night Sorrow returned to the mansion. He had dinner with his parents and the 3 girls. Then, he returned to the secret cultivation room to continue cultivating. The 9 regions world was currently peaceful. Many people didn't feel any sense of danger. However, Night Sorrow knew that the 9 regions world was facing a huge storm. It was a very difficult storm. If they couldn't withstand it, then it would be the same as 10,000 years ago. It would be a disaster where all the experts would fall and the 9 regions would be shattered. While Night Sorrow was cultivating, Yin Shi was also cultivating diligently. The following days were peaceful. After a month, Night Sorrow's myriad Tao Tome cultivation returned to the peak of level 3 of the spirit refinement realm. Night Sorrow's improvement was remarkable, but Yin Shi's improvement wasn't the same. She had successfully returned to being a 4-star saint. This situation made Yin Shi feel a little emotional. Only half a year had passed. After her cultivation was damaged, she didn't expect to recover so quickly. Although it would be more difficult to recover her cultivation in the following days because it required more energy, she was still very happy. For Yin Shi, it was true that she hadn't recovered her lost cultivation. However, her strength wasn't too far off. The most important point was that she had cultivated the body of wind origin. Her cultivation could be recovered with time. However, cultivating the body of wind origin was a great achievement. It wasn't something that could be accumulated with time and resources. After another cultivation session, Night Sorrow went to see Yiling Huan. He asked about the current situation in the Night Moon dynasty. Because he could move now, Shi could go and fight a 7-star saint. In Shi's words, it was hard to say whether she could kill the 7-star saint, but she definitely wouldn't lose. Some time ago, Grandpa went back to the Night Moon Sea to check on the situation. The time to counterattack will be 2 months if it's fast, and half a year if it's slow, Yiling Huan said. Before you move, let me know in advance, Night Sorrow said. Yiling Huan was stunned for a moment before he nodded. He understood that Night Sorrow's side was already prepared. After that, Night Sorrow went to drink tea with his mother. His father, Yi Wuyo, stayed in the city in the sky for a few days before returning to the Night Moon Sea to comprehend the power of rules. This time, he came out because he missed his son. Now, Sikong Chuyu, Yang Lei, and Aoi were accompanying Yu Qing every day. Yu Qing could also guide them in their cultivation. A level 7 supremacy was an incredible expert. Yang Lei and Aoi didn't have any relatives. Therefore, they liked the feeling of having a mother. Mother, don't people say that the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law is hard to get along with? I think you two are not much different from biological mother and daughter. Yi Shang looked at Yu Qing and Sikong Chuyu who were drinking tea and said. Yang Lei looked at Night Sorrow and said, that's because mother is a kind mother. We are also very sensible. Yu Qing looked at Night Sorrow and said, Night Sorrow, you have to take good care of Father Gu. It's not easy for him to raise you alone. Chapter 772. Genius 1 second. Remember love go divided by Shao. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Where are you going? There are a lot of people watching you. Yu Qing's eyes were filled with worry. Baidu search AI go female sign Shao say www.aichuxs. Xiaom Yu Qing had learned a lot during this period. She knew that Night Sorrow was an influential figure among the younger generation of the 9 domains and was being watched by many forces. She was afraid that some shameless people would try to assassinate Night Sorrow again. Mother, I'm going to take a look at the situation of the emergence of Haogen City. Besides, I've cultivated the spatial fissure. It won't be easy for anyone to assassinate me. Night Sorrow said with a smile. He knew that this was the nagging of a loving mother, but he liked the feeling. Mother, don't worry. When he was a chi refinement cultivator, he ran around everywhere and no one could do anything to him. Now that he's a mid-level venerable, he can fight above his level. There won't be a problem. Sikong Chuyu said with a smile. Night Sorrow bowed to Yu Qing and left Sky City. Night Sorrow hadn't been to the Realm Sea for a while. He wanted to take a closer look at the situation of Haogen City. If possible, he wanted to be the first to ascend Haogen City. Currently, only the Tianji Tower Alliance's side was outside Haogen City. However, there were still many venerable teams. The venerables of the 9 domains world were all gathered near Haogen City, waiting for the emergence of Haogen City and waiting for opportunities. After arriving at the Qingtian domain, Night Sorrow thought for a while and then went to the Celestial Peak Pavilion. Night Sorrow entered the Celestial Peak Pavilion wearing a mask. The bronze hall guards in the Celestial Peak Pavilion all bowed to greet him. When he arrived at the underground hall, Night Sorrow took off his mask. Q unspecified currency L head J hair H. Subordinate Heavenly Star greets young master. The golden masked Heavenly Star bowed to Night Sorrow. You're too polite. I plan to take a look at the Dark Tower. Night Sorrow nodded to Heavenly Star and stood on the teleportation array. Following which, Heavenly Star activated the teleportation array and sent Night Sorrow to the Tianji Tower's dark hole. Nodding to Gold Moon, who was guarding the teleportation array in the dark tower, Night Sorrow went directly to the dark tower. Guo and Hua Haining were meditating with their eyes closed. When they saw Night Sorrow, they opened their eyes and said, "It's rare for you to come here." "Love go little say W Chu," Yishan greeted Guo and Hua Haining with cupped hands. "Wine. Then we'll talk." Guo tossed a futon to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow sat down, took out the wine, and gave Guo and Hua Haining a jar each. When they were drinking, Guo said that Chen Chen's affairs had been properly arranged. Apart from the disciples of the Medicine Valley, the branch of the Tianji Tower in Juyuan City had arranged a long-term task, which was to keep an eye on Qin Qin and kill him directly if he showed any signs of disobedience. As for Su Mu, he seemed to have disappeared at the moment and there was no news about him. It's not easy to find him when he hides. He used to live with beasts and is nicknamed Beast Baby. By the way, what's Ji Yuhao's situation now? Night Sorrow asked about Ji Yuhao. Then Guo told Night Sorrow some news that surprised him. There was a small turmoil in the Ji Yu family. After Ji Yu Fenglan entered the Saint Realm, he had a conflict with Ji Yu Haitian. After a fight, Ji Yu Fenglan, who had mastered the rules of space, defeated Ji Yu Haitian and took over the family again. He also made Ji Yuhao the young master of the Ji Yu family. With the support and training of the family, Ji Yuhao had entered the 5th level of the Venerable Realm for some time. This guy's cultivation speed is very fast. Night Sorrow thought that his cultivation should not be far from Ji Yuhao's, but now there was still a big gap. Then Hua Haining explained to Night Sorrow that the Ji Yu family was one of the oldest families in the Qingtian domain and had a very deep foundation. It was easy to train a venerable with resources. Night Sorrow thought for a while and figured it out. Ji Yuhao was a venerable with the time attribute, so the Ji Yu family must have trained him with all their strength. As for resources, Night Sorrow thought that he had a lot of them. However, the Ji Yu family had been passed down for countless generations. Each generation would accumulate some treasures, so the family was very rich. That guy is your potential opponent. Be careful. If you encounter him, kill him if you can. If you can't, run away, Hua Haining said. I know. Don't worry, Elder Hua, Night Sorrow said with a smile. Hua Haining and the others did not know that Night Sorrow had the supreme attribute. They only knew that Night Sorrow had the space attribute, and the space attribute was no match for the time attribute. In addition, Ji Yuhao's cultivation was higher than Night Sorrow's, so they were worried. After talking with Guo and Hua Haining for a while, Night Sorrow left Tianji Tower and rushed to Haohai City. Previously, Wu Lingfei left Sky City and went to the island in the Realm Sea mainly because the Night Clan people were in Sky City. Sky City was not a place where people could do whatever they wanted, so she was not worried about their safety. Before she left, Wu Lingfei mentioned to Night Sorrow that the profound jade energy she left in Night Sorrow's body would vibrate continuously in an emergency. She could feel it. Even if Night Sorrow was isolated by the energy, she could roughly sense his location. Last time, when Night Sorrow was captured by Yin Shi, she used energy to bind Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow did not take the initiative to vibrate the profound jade energy, so Wu Lingfei could not find his specific location. Night Sorrow was very relaxed now. Sneak attack. Come on. As long as it was not a high-level saint, no matter how many people came, they would all die. However, no one came looking for trouble. Night Sorrow safely arrived at Haohai City and then flew in the Realm Sea. Night Sorrow also released Yin Shi. You are so ruthless. You can actually ignore the Realm Sea's law attacks. I think all soul attacks should be ineffective against you, Yin Shi said with some emotion. You stand here and don't move. I will fly first and see how far we can sense each other. Yishang said to Yin Shi and then flew forward. He was looking for the perception distance. He wanted to know how far he could communicate with Yin Shi and how far he could still use his soul power. After flying for 120 miles, Yishang found that this was his limit. As long as he did not exceed this distance, he would be able to sense Yin Shi's soul fluctuations and thoughts. Yishang's thoughts could also be transmitted, but it would not work outside this range. Night Sorrow then told Yin Shi to follow 120 miles. In other words, the limit of our soul connection and communication is 120 miles. Yin Shi said when they arrived beside Night Sorrow. It's like this. If you go beyond this range, I can sense your position, but I can't sense your soul fluctuations and can't communicate with you. So, you have to pay attention to this distance in the future, Night Sorrow said. You mean that if I go beyond this distance, you will detonate your soul power, right? Yin Shi stared at Night Sorrow with her beautiful eyes. Why are you so fierce? I just asked you not to go beyond this distance. Are you going to run or what? Am I not treating you well? Night Sorrow was unhappy when he saw Yin Shi's fierce eyes. I won't go so far as to run away. I just want to know if you can still be merciless to me if I treat you like this. You can fight me whenever you want. You can do whatever you want. Yin Shi turned around and looked at Yishang. Don't ask like this. Some things will hurt our friendship and also hurt our reputation. I will treat you better, so you should be more honest. Night Sorrow exhaled and said. It seems that you really know how to fight. Yin Shi was a little disappointed. Chapter 773. Genius 1 second. Remember, love divided by go divided by little. I'll provide you with interesting novels to read. Not bad. I wasn't too ruthless. I thought you would do something evil to me or do something ruthless to me. Love go little say. Yin Shi's eyes became much gentler. Evil to me. Just think about it. Night Sorrow said and released the airship. He entered the airship and started to install the spiritual stones. After installing the spiritual stones, Night Sorrow controlled the airship to fly and sat down on the rattan chair. Yin Shi sat beside Night Sorrow. What do you mean? Are you saying that I'm not even a flower? Night Sorrow looked at Yin Shi. I'm just joking. Why are you so upset? Let me tell you. When I was with you, I was still a virgin. You can ignore it, but you can't insult me. Yin Shi was a little angry. Women cared about other people's comments. Night Sorrow meant that she was not even a flower. She couldn't accept it. If it was in the past, she would have slapped anyone who dared to say that to her. But now, only Night Sorrow could slap her. She didn't have the chance to slap Night Sorrow. I'm just joking. Aren't you tired of thinking so much? Night Sorrow looked at Yin Shi and said. There are some things that I don't have to think about, but some things can't be done just because I don't want to. It's my instinct, Yin Shi said. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and felt that for a woman, beauty was also a kind of dignity. It was no wonder that Yin Shi was so upset. After thinking it through, Night Sorrow smiled at Yin Shi. I'm just joking. You're very outstanding. Truth. Yin Shi looked at Night Sorrow and asked. Yeah, why would I lie to you? Night Sorrow nodded. I'll admit that I'm in your hands. I'll admit that my virginity is ruined. But you can't eat me and say that I don't taste good. You can't take advantage of me, Yin Shi said. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew that he shouldn't provoke women. There were some things that couldn't be said. If you're angry, I won't even be able to drink tea. Night Sorrow asked. Are you angry too? She looked at Night Sorrow and asked. Think about it yourself, Night Sorrow replied. She knew that Yi Shang was unhappy because of her emotional display. Ignoring he thought about Night Sorrow and decided not to meet Wu Lingfei, Xie Lanjun, and the others. It wouldn't be good to leave after meeting them. Baidu search AI go female sign Xiao say www.aichuxs. If it was Night Sorrow alone, he would be able to cultivate anywhere as he did not need to carry anyone. However, he could not do so with Shi around. Therefore, he decided to go to the island where Shi used to live because Shi also needed to cultivate and consolidate her cultivation. When they arrived at their destination, he put away the flying ship. We don't need to set up camp. If we want to rest and recover, we can just enter the space-time pagoda. Okay, I'll listen to you. She looked at Night Sorrow's face. She was still worried that Night Sorrow would be upset about what happened just now. Then, the two of them cultivated in the spatial turbulence of the realm sea. The two of them, who had used up a lot of energy, went to the space-time pagoda to recover and consolidate their cultivation. Baidu search AI go female sign Xiao say www.aichuxs. Calm, Night Sorrow, I still want that, she said with a red face. You don't have to lower yourself like this. I was wrong today, but you can't throw a tantrum at me, Night Sorrow said. She nodded. I'll be careful in the future. Then, Night Sorrow meditated to recover. He didn't know how to deal with his relationship with Shi now. If he said that he had subdued her through a contract, then with that layer of relationship, he felt that it was even more inappropriate to treat Night Sorrow as a servant girl because she was reasonable and obedient. After recovering, Night Sorrow saw she sitting there absent-mindedly. What's wrong? Nothing. She shook her head. She shouted that she wanted it, but Night Sorrow ignored her. She felt that her relationship with Night Sorrow was going to reach an impasse. This wasn't what she wanted. Don't think too much. Recover well. I'm going to cultivate. When I come back to recover, we'll talk again. Night Sorrow could see that Shi's emotions were fluctuating. She needed to calm down, so he planned to cultivate for a while before coming back. Night Sorrow fought the storm and the soul-devouring beast in the spatial turbulence for a while. Then, he entered the space-time pagoda. Seeing that Night Sorrow had returned, Shi made a pot of hot tea. It seems like you've thought it through. Otherwise, where would I have hot tea to drink? Night Sorrow said with a smile. You're so narrow-minded. I'm a woman. Can't you understand women? Shi said. Night Sorrow nodded. He felt that there was no need for him to be calculative with Shi. It wasn't a matter of principle. Seeing that Night Sorrow nodded, Shi smiled. She knew that today's small twists and turns were over. It wouldn't affect anything anymore. Is it funny? Night Sorrow looked at Shi and asked. Shi shook her head. It's not funny. But you can listen to what others say. You're easy to get along with. Do I want you to give it to me now? Although you've never been with a man, your methods are top-notch. I'm a man. Do you think I can reject you? Night Sorrow looked at Shi speechlessly. The two of them went to the big bed. After an intense battle, Shi began to assist Night Sorrow in his cultivation. 2 hours later, the two of them ended their cultivation. Night Sorrow put on his robes, but Shi didn't move. Why aren't you cultivating? Night Sorrow asked. I'm a little tired now. There are some parts of my body that need to be relaxed. Shi said with a red face. It was mainly because Night Sorrow's combat strength was too strong. The impact made her body a little uncomfortable. She cultivated the wind origin body, but she didn't cultivate any external chapter. Some parts of her body were still weak and sensitive. Night Sorrow nodded and went to meditate. He wasn't an amateur in the matters between men and women. He knew some things. Then, the two of them began to cultivate in the spatial turbulence of the realm sea. They consumed their cultivation and stabilized it. As time passed, the two of them went deeper and deeper. It even exceeded the area that she could go deep in the past. In the violent spatial turbulence filled with the power of laws of saints was useless. They had to rely on their combat strength and movement techniques to survive. In the past, She's cultivation level was high, but her body wasn't strong enough. She wasn't fast enough, so she couldn't go deep. Now, her cultivation level was lower, but her body's quality had improved. She was much faster and could continuously use the wind origin flash. Night Sorrow's spatial protective air shield had strong cutting power. He could find the gaps in the spatial turbulence. In addition, he could switch to the void protective air shield, which had strong defensive power. This was something that others couldn't do. In other words, Night Sorrow and she had the ability to survive in the spatial turbulence that others couldn't. After the two of them recovered, she said, "Night Sorrow, can we go deeper? Can we try to get close to Clear Sky City?" Faster, faster, Q. It's true that we can go deeper, but we can't reach Clear Sky City. Therefore, we have to be steady. When the spatial turbulence weakens, we will be the first to enter, Night Sorrow said after thinking for a while. He was really not in a hurry now. Chapter 774. A Genius Remembers Love in 1 Second. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. Night Sorrow thought for a while and nodded. Although there were no flaws in his body and the myriad Tao Tome's energy, after being nourished by She's wind origin body, his body would become more flexible and perfect. Also, She needed his cooperation to continue strengthening her wind origin body. Baidu search AI go female sign shao say www.aichuxs. After subduing she became obedient. Night Sorrow naturally wanted She to recover her cultivation as soon as possible and improve her strength as soon as possible. After getting comfortable and enjoying the nourishment of She's energy, Night Sorrow looked at She. How do you feel now? Very good. My body is getting closer and closer to perfection. However, there is no limit to this improvement. The only difference is whether the effect is strong or weak. Besides, after I recover to the level of a 4-star saint, it will be difficult for me to improve any further. After all, I need too much energy. Baidu search love go shao shua www.aichuxs.com, she said. Night Sorrow nodded. He knew that there was a huge difference between the early and middle stages of a practitioner. The amount of energy needed to advance was also different. After pondering for a while, Night Sorrow asked about the issue of resources. He asked She if he could use resources to increase his cultivation. She shook her head. This was not a problem of resources. The main problem was that it would take a long time to stabilize. Otherwise, there would be a drawback of an unstable foundation. Then let's take it slow. In any case, you're a 4-star saint now. When you need to fight, it won't be a problem for you to withstand a 7-star saint. Love go little say Kunite Sorrow was not in a hurry because he was not as anxious as before. He did not want She to ruin her foundation. After chatting for a while, Night Sorrow and She went back to the chaotic streams of space in the realm sea to cultivate. Both of them were fast and agile, so they had no problem surviving in the chaotic streams of space and could even improve their cultivation bases. As time went by, the distance between Night Sorrow and She was increasing. God knows how many space soul eater beasts were killed by the two of them. Entering the space-time treasure pagoda again, Night Sorrow drank the tea brewed by Yin Shi and pondered. What are you thinking about? Yin Shi sat across from Night Sorrow and asked. I'm wondering what kind of person could set up such a formation to seal Haoyan City, Night Sorrow said. Who knows what happened 10,000 years ago? Don't think too much about it. If there's a chance, we'll go up. If there's no chance for us, then the others won't have a chance either, Yin Shi said. She was very open-minded now. Night Sorrow planned to go back. He hadn't gone back in a long time. He wanted to go back and see if there was anything going on. Also, his myriad Tao tome was going to level up. Yin Shi didn't have any objections to Night Sorrow's decision. Even if she had any objections, she had to follow Night Sorrow's decision. However, Yin Shi didn't want to go back. After going back, Night Sorrow would have to face some people and things. He wouldn't be able to cultivate with her all the time. She still needed his help now. Sitting on the airship, they arrived at the border of Haohai City's domain sea. Night Sorrow put Yin Shi into the space-time treasure pagoda and then put away the airship. He flew towards the teleportation array of Haohai City and then directly teleported back to the Sky City. Yu Qing was very happy to see Night Sorrow back. She hadn't seen her son for many years and was separated during this period. She couldn't let go of her son. During dinner, Night Sorrow asked the girls about their cultivation. He was relieved when he found out that they had no problems. Then, the family went to the lake to drink tea. Night Sorrow asked Tianyu, who had transformed into a human, about his cultivation and whether he needed any resources. Tianyu shook his head. He meant that he could cultivate. His green rock body's ability to absorb the energy of heaven and earth was very strong. Yu Qing asked about Night Sorrow's situation. Night Sorrow told her that he had gone to the domain sea to cultivate. He also told her the specific details. It's really a chaotic world. Son, you must be careful. Don't try to be brave. Yu Qing looked at her son with some worry. Night Sorrow nodded. He naturally had to listen to his mother's words. In addition, he didn't plan to cultivate in the near future. Night Sorrow had gone to the domain sea a while ago. One reason was to check out the situation. Another reason was that Yin Shi needed to consolidate her cultivation. The spatial turbulence in the domain sea was the best place for Yin Shi to consolidate her cultivation. Next, she would need to cultivate steadily. On the second day, while Night Sorrow was cultivating his spear art, Yiling Huan came. Grandpa is here. Night Sorrow put away the space splitter spear and poured a cup of tea for Yiling Huan. Okay. How are your preparations? The family still needs a month. We can take action in a month, Yiling Huan said. Good. I'll arrange the 7-star sage problem. I'll give Grandpa news in a month. Night Sorrow nodded to Yiling Huan. If there are any problems, you can tell Grandpa. Don't force it, Yiling Huan said to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow shook his head and then chatted with Yiling Huan for a while. Yiling Huan left, and Night Sorrow returned to the space-time treasure pagoda. Yin Shi, you know the situation. When can we take action? Half a month. If I cultivate diligently, my wind essence body can reach the small perfection realm in half a month. My cultivation will also be more condensed and can reach the late stage of the 4-star sage, Yin Shi said. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and felt that it was inconvenient for him to assist Yin Shi in her cultivation. He had to inform his family and find a place where there was no one around. He would do his best to assist Yin Shi in increasing her strength and then kill the 7-star saint. After learning that Night Sorrow was going to leave, Yu Qing and Sikong Chuyu were not too willing because Night Sorrow had only been back for 2 days. Mother, Chuyu, senior sisters, the Night Moon dynasty is about to come back. A battle is unavoidable. I'll go and find out the news. I'll be back in a month at most. Knight Sorrow naturally could not say that he was going to find trouble with the 7-star sage. In such a situation, Yu Qing and the 3 girls naturally could not stop him. After leaving the city in the sky, Knight Sorrow went to the mansion in the Tai Ching domain and then entered the spacetime pagoda. Yin Shi, do you know where the 7-star sage will be staying? Knight Sorrow looked at Yin Shi and asked. This is very simple. When I'm ready, we'll go to the 7-star dynasty's 7-star city. If the 7-star sage is in the 7-star city, then there's nothing to say. If he's not, then we'll attack the 7-star dynasty's monarch. If we can't, then we'll kill him directly. The 7-star sage will naturally come out, Yin Shi said. A Yong 6x long dx 3%, Phi n0 g small v said. Knight Sorrow nodded. He knew that this method was very rough, but it would be very effective. The 7-star sage had no choice but to come out. Then you have to do your best to help me cultivate now. Yin Shi looked at Knight Sorrow and said with a red face. At this moment, in the 7-star palace of the 7-star dynasty's 7-star city, a middle-aged man sat on the main seat. An old man stood beside him, and below them stood 2 rows of the 7-star dynasty's higher-ups. Chapter 775. Genius remembers love in 1 second/small. We provide you with interesting novels to read. Old Ancestor, is the matter so serious? You're a mid-level saint, there's no need for us to be afraid of the Night Moon Dynasty. Xing Badian said. You pig brain, you need to think more about everything. If the Night Moon Dynasty was easy to deal with, how could it have lasted for so many years? Do you think the other dynasties don't have any saints? The Sky and Wind Dynasty's Tai Yuan saint, Chen Yuan, may be a 5-star saint, but his strength is mediocre. There are many things he doesn't know. If he knew some things, he wouldn't touch the Night Moon Dynasty even if he had 10 times the guts. 7-star Saint Xing Mingi roared at Xing Badian. Old Ancestor, is the matter so serious? Xing Lo, who was standing below, asked. AI. Moon Emperor Yi Tian is the #1 person in the Tai Ching domain. If he didn't have true strength, do you think the saints of the other dynasties would acknowledge him? Would no one step forward to take down his title? Only that pig Qin Yuan doesn't know anything and dares to do anything. The main thing is that there are too few people who know the truth. This seat is also one of the few who know the truth. Xing Mingi sighed. Old Ancestor, what's going on? Not to mention Xing Lo, even Xing Badian was confused. Then Xing Mingi said that he had seen Yi Tian twice. The first time was 1,000 years ago. At that time, he couldn't see Yi Tian's cultivation. 300 years ago, he saw Yi Tian at the invincible venerable realm, but he knew that it was a soul doppelganger. Then if Yi Tian appears again, it will be a disaster for our dynasties. Xing Baishan's face changed. Xing Mingi nodded. He was now thinking about how to deal with this matter. Should he cede land and apologize, or should he continue to endure? And, $1 ceding land, compensating, and apologizing could guarantee that the 7-star dynasty would not be destroyed. However, it would be embarrassing and there would be a lot of losses. However, if the 7-star dynasty could not take it anymore, it would be the end of the 7-star dynasty. Then could it be that Yi Tian's lifespan has run out and he's already dead? Xing Badian whispered. Bullshit. Even if your lifespan runs out, his lifespan won't. However, since he hasn't appeared for so long, there should be a problem. He should have gone to another dimension, and it's unknown if he can come back. The crux of the problem now is whether we should reconcile with the Night Moon Dynasty or continue to hold on, which is to bet on whether Yi Tian will appear again. Xing Mingi directly expressed his inner struggle. The Night Moon Empire has already been destroyed. Is there a need for us to reconcile? Besides, we will lose a lot of face. Love go little say Kuxing Badian said. Do you know that Yiling Huan led his people to retreat to the night moon sky? There are still a few emperors alive. Once they touch the power of rules, even without the night moon sky, our great dynasties will not be able to withstand them. Xing Mingi said. Xing Badian nodded and didn't say anything. Yiling Huan was an undefeatable king. His talent was outstanding, and his battle prowess was shocking. Once he broke through to the Saint Realm, it would be a big problem. Let me think about this first. One wrong step and it will be a disaster. 7-star Saint said. Night Sorrow accompanied Yin Shi to cultivate. As long as Yin Shi needed it, he would cooperate with her. However, Yin Shi was very considerate of Night Sorrow. She only needed Night Sorrow once a day, and rarely twice. Half a month later, Yin Shi nodded to Night Sorrow. Night Sorrow, my Wind Yuan body has reached the small success stage. My Jinqi cultivation is also at the late stage of the 4-star Saint Realm. I can fight. Then let's go, but you have to change your clothes and hair color. Night Sorrow looked at Yin Shi and said. No need. My Wind Yuan body has reached the small perfection stage. I can change my hair color at any time. Yin Shi said. At the same time, energy circulated in her hair, and her silver hair turned black. This is also very good. Very quiet and has a different temperament. However, it's less flirtatious. 2 different styles. Night Sorrow said. Then which style of mine do you like? Yin Shi looked at Night Sorrow and asked. If there's no one, then do it here. Silver hair has a different style. It's outside. Black hair looks dignified and elegant. Night Sorrow thought for a moment and said. Then I'll do as you say. When I go out, I'll change my hair back to black. When I come back, I'll change my hair back to silver. Yin Shi said to Night Sorrow. Hey! You're so obedient. I can't not treat you well. Then we'll set off. Also, when you fight with 7-star Saint, if you can fight, then fight. If you can't, then we'll retreat. I can let Night Moon Dynasty delay the battle. Night Sorrow said to Yin Shi. Don't worry. During this period of time, you've been assisting me in my cultivation. My cultivation has returned from the 7th level Saint Realm to the 4th level Saint Realm. It's my first battle. I have to win some face for myself. Yin Shi said. Then, Night Sorrow put on the God-slaying team's mask. Yin Shi and Night Sorrow also put on their veils. They left the mansion and headed towards 7-star City. After leaving the 7-star City's teleportation array, Yin Shi looked at Night Sorrow and said, You have to be careful. If 7-star Saint is here, I won't have the energy to take care of you when I'm fighting with him. There must be a peak level Saint here. Yin Shi, put the space-time pagoda on you. If I'm in danger, I'll pounce on you and hide. So, as long as you're fine, I'll be fine. Night Sorrow shrunk the space-time pagoda and handed it to Yin Shi. Yin Shi took the space-time pagoda and pinned it on her belt. Okay, you've already practiced the skill of pouncing on me to the point of perfection. There shouldn't be any danger. Night Sorrow looked at Yin Shi speechlessly. He realized that Yin Shi's attitude had changed. She no longer had that gloomy and cold aura. She had become much more cheerful. Then, the two of them walked towards the 7-star palace. That was the core of 7-star dynasty. When the two of them arrived at the square, some people appeared in the 7-star palace. The one leading them was Xing Mingi. Which saint are you? Xing Mingi looked at Yin Shi and asked. However, his gaze also landed on Night Sorrow. Normally, Night Sorrow's 4-star saint cultivation wouldn't attract Xing Mingi's attention. However, Night Sorrow's blood was surging and his vital essence was soaring into the sky. He had no choice but to pay attention to him. I don't want to talk too much. You're in the way. I'm here to kill you today. Yin Shi waved her right hand and the flowing wind sword appeared in her hand. I didn't provoke you, did I? Besides, you're a 4-star saint and you want to kill me. Isn't that a joke? Xing Mingi said. Today, I'll kill a 5-star saint for you to see. Yin Shi turned her head and looked at Night Sorrow because her words were directed at Night Sorrow. After saying that, Yin Shi's body shook and a ray of light came out of her body. Then, she appeared in front of Xing Mingi. The flowing wind sword slashed towards Xing Mingi with a sword ray that tore the space apart. Who are you? Xing Mingi retreated. At the same time, he took out a broadsword and stabbed it toward Yin Shi's flowing wind sword. However, Yin Shi had already changed the direction of her sword. The sharp sword chi slashed towards Xing Mingi's side. At the same time, the power of the rules of feng shui had already shrouded Xing Mingi. Chapter 776. Genius remembers love in 1 second/small. We provide you with interesting novels to read. Did the 7-star dynasty offend someone they shouldn't? Tell us and we can solve it, Xing Mingi said. Don't talk nonsense with him. Let's kill him first. Night Sorrow could see that the 7-star sage was no match for Yin Shi. Silver's true chi wasn't as dense as Xing Mingi's, but Yin Shi was too fast. Xing Mingi could only defend passively. You're courting death. Xing Badian roared and rushed towards Night Sorrow. He could see that Xing Mingi wasn't a match for Yin Shi. Xing Mingi cultivated the 7-star mixed yuan technique. His body was strong and his strength was ferocious. However, Yin Shi didn't fight him head-on. She relied on her speed to fight. Xing Mingi couldn't use his strength. Night Sorrow smiled, a bunch of shameless people. Is this how the 7-star dynasty does things? Let's continue to play until your 7-star dynasty is destroyed. After speaking, Night Sorrow communicated with the Time Pagoda. His body propped up a protective shield. Then, he charged towards Yin Shi with a slash and entered the Time Pagoda. Yin Shi, if you can fight, then fight. Don't let them surround you, Night Sorrow communicated with Yin Shi. How dare you surround me? I'll kill you with 1 slash. Yin Shi said. Not only did Night Sorrow hear it, but the people from the 7-star dynasty also heard it. They didn't dare to surround her anymore. You're not a 4-star sage. Your power of law and speed aren't something a 4-star sage should have. Why did you suppress your cultivation to kill me? Don't you feel ashamed? Being surrounded by Yin Shi, Xing Mingi roared. He couldn't keep up with her speed. His protective shield was shattered time and time again. It consumed a lot of energy. Then, you're attacking the Night Moon dynasty together with a sage. Aren't you ashamed? Someone asked me to kill you. You should understand. Yin Shi broke Xing Mingi's protective shield with another slash. She even cut a bloody wound on Xing Mingi's body. The sword chi entered his body and started to destroy it. This was the advantage of speed. In addition, the saint-level sword flowing wind sword was also extremely powerful and could increase the power of the sword chi. It's because of what happened back then. Can't we reconcile? Xing Mingi shouted. No way. Why didn't you make peace earlier? Now that they're here, you want to make peace. Yin Shi roared and continued to attack Xing Mingi from all directions. The sword qi that broke through his protective qi cover continued to enter Xingmingi's body. The constant destruction caused by the sword qi made Xingmingi's condition worse and worse. He couldn't run away even if he wanted to. Yin Shi's speed was at least twice as fast as his, and she was attacking him from all directions. The battle went on for 15 minutes, and Xingmingi was struck in the back. The sword qi directly penetrated his body. The seven-star saint coughed out a mouthful of blood and roared, "King, the seven-star dynasty will depend on you. Reconcile, no matter what the request is, we will reconcile." After hearing the seven-star saint's words, Knight Sorrow hesitated for a moment. Then, he asked Yin Shi to stop. Since the seven-star saint kept asking for reconciliation, he wanted to see what the seven-star saint had to say. If it wasn't necessary, he didn't want the saint of the 9 zones to die. After Yin Shi retreated, Knight Sorrow's body flashed out of the space-time pagoda. Yin Shi stood half a step behind Knight Sorrow. "Knight Sorrow, now that he's severely injured, we can kill him at any time. Let's see what he has to say. If it wasn't necessary, I really don't want to see the saint of the 9 zones die. Moreover, he kept asking for reconciliation. I'm not too willing to kill him." Knight Sorrow told Yin Shi the reason why she stopped. Hearing the name Knight Sorrow, the faces of the higher-ups of the seven-star dynasty who were standing on the other side changed. "Knight Sorrow, you still came. I'm also a member of the Tianji Tower. Now that my family has reconciled, let's talk, okay?" Star Tiger stood out. "Love go little say Wang, Chu, Star Tiger, because you're a man, I don't have a bad impression of the seven-star dynasty. However, back then, you joined forces with several other dynasties to destroy the Night Moon dynasty. This grudge must be resolved." Knight Sorrow looked at Star Tiger and said, "Say it. What do you want us to do?" Star Batian stood out and said, "You guys discuss first and show me your sincerity. I'll see if it's possible. If it's not enough, then there's nothing I can do." "Star Tiger, we're both members of the Tianji Tower. I've given you face, but we must seek justice for the Night Moon dynasty." Knight Sorrow looked at Star Tiger and said, "If we can't satisfy you, then we'll continue. He's a grasshopper in our hands. We can kill him at any time." Yin Shi nodded at Knight Sorrow. Then, Star Batian helped Xingmingi to the side. They began to discuss how to reconcile. After a while, the seven-star dynasty finished their discussion. Star Batian, Xingmingi, and Star Tiger also came over. "Our seven-star dynasty will return all the cities of the Night Moon dynasty and be responsible for the construction of the cities. In addition, we'll take out some resources as compensation. The compensation will be 5 years of our seven-star dynasty's income." Star Batian said, "On this basis, I still have some things to say. First of all, those who participated in the war back then must go to the tombstone of the ancestors of the Night Moon dynasty and burn incense to repent. Second, the seven-star dynasty must not interfere in the war between the Night Moon dynasty and the other dynasties." Knight Sorrow looked at Star Batian and Xingmingi and said, "Okay, we'll do it." Star Batian nodded at Knight Sorrow. "That's good. I'm not afraid of you going back on your words. I hope you won't give me a reason to come back. Actually, I'm not very willing to reconcile, but I have to consider the overall situation of the 9 regions. Also, reconciliation is my personal idea. I still have to report to the Night Moon dynasty. They'll have a final decision after a discussion." Knight Sorrow said. Then, Star Batian and Xingmingi both agreed to Knight Sorrow's request. Seal off today's news. If the Night Moon dynasty agrees to reconcile, we'll take over the cities when the time is right. Knight Sorrow glanced at the heavily injured Xingmingi and said. Xingmingi nodded. Right now, he wasn't qualified to negotiate, and neither was the Seven-Star Dynasty. Let's go. Knight Sorrow nodded at Yin Shi and left. After taking a dozen steps, Knight Sorrow turned to Star Tiger and said, "You owe me another favor." "I'll remember." Star Tiger cupped his hands at Knight Sorrow. Then, Knight Sorrow and Yin Shi left the Seven-Star Palace. Xing Mingi spat out another mouthful of blood. He knew that the Seven-Star Dynasty had dodged a calamity, but the other dynasties were facing a disaster. As for reconciliation, Knight Sorrow said it was his personal idea. He felt that Knight Sorrow's idea was similar to Knight Moon's idea. "Old ancestor, are you alright?" Star Batian asked while supporting Xing Mingi. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation, sigh. I shouldn't have hesitated previously. If I had reconciled directly, there wouldn't be today's embarrassment. The Night Moon Dynasty isn't to be trifled with. Just now, that woman used her 4-star saint cultivation to crush me, a 5-star saint. She's too terrifying. She even listens to orders. Xing Mingi sighed and spat out another mouthful of blood. Yin Shi's sword chi was still churning in his body. Why would a saint listen to the orders of a sovereign? Star Batian didn't understand. Chapter 777. A genius remembers love in 1 second. We provide you with wonderful novels to read. A follower of a saint. Tianji Tower won't arrange a saint to follow him, right? Xing Batian helped Xing Mingi walk towards the 7 Stars Hall while arranging for people to seal off the news. Tianji Tower has a few new saints recently, but there is only one veteran saint, the Wuji saint. There is no one who matches that female saint. Star Tiger, that young man, Knight Sorrow, is unbeatable. Not to mention that he has a saint as his follower, he is a level 4 venerable himself. His spiritual chi is soaring to the sky, and his future is limitless. Xing Mingi reminded Star Tiger. Knight Sorrow was very happy. He brought Yin Shi to a restaurant and asked for a private room. He ordered a table full of dishes and 2 jars of good wine. The 7-star saints have been dealt with. The Night Moon Dynasty can come back to fight. If another saint appears, we'll fight again. It's fast, and the feeling of fighting is great. Yin Shi took off her veil and said. Knight Sorrow looked at Yin Shi and said, "You are addicted to killing. Thank you very much. If you have any requests, just tell me. If I can do it for you, I will do it. What's the point of making a request? Isn't everything I have already yours? What do I have now?" Yin Shi said, but she didn't look depressed. "Look forward to my cultivation surpassing yours. Once I surpass you, I will withdraw my soul power and give you freedom." Yishan thought for a moment and made his decision. "Let's go." Yishan thought for a moment and made his decision. "Why did you make such a decision?" Yin Shi was stunned. "After spending some time with you, I've realized that you're not that bad. However, I can't let you go now. If you want to take revenge, the Night Moon Dynasty won't be able to withstand your vengeance. I can't risk the safety of the people around me." Knight Sorrow spoke his mind. "I can understand your mentality. Actually, it's not a big deal. You're full of justice deep down. Some of the things that happened between us weren't out of your own will. You're not treating me badly right now. We can talk about the future in the future. However, I hope that you can give me some space when the time is right. I swear I won't run away." Yin Shi looked at Knight Sorrow and raised her hand to make a vow. Perhaps no one cared about the oaths of mortals, but the oaths of cultivators to the Tao of the heavens were something no one cared about or valued. Cultivators were going against the will of the heavens. They were fighting against the will of the heavens. If they went against the will of the heavens, karma would descend upon them. Heart demons and lightning tribulations would appear. In addition, their soul and state of mind would be tainted. The consequences were very serious. Look at the chapter S section W above O/authentic version. Night Sorrow nodded. Then, he and Yin-Shi ate and drank to their heart's content. The two of them walked towards the teleportation array. When they arrived at the teleportation array, Night Sorrow realized that the Seven Stars City was under martial law. The teleportation array had been sealed. The person guarding the teleportation array was Princess Sing Lo of the Seven Stars dynasty. Sing Lo looked at Night Sorrow and Yin-Shi furiously. Night Sorrow was wearing the mask that he wore when he went to the Seven Stars Palace. Yin-Shi was wearing a veil, which was also her battle attire. What are you looking at? I want to teleport. Night Sorrow frowned and lifted his chin towards the teleportation array. Move aside, let them teleport. Sing Lo was furious because Night Sorrow and Yin-Shi had smashed the dignity of the Seven Stars dynasty into pieces. Night Sorrow didn't care about Sing Lo's attitude. Cultivation. Sing Lo had the cultivation of a level 6 supremacy. Night Sorrow had the ability to fight. In terms of appearance and figure, he had seen many outstanding women. None of the women in his family were inferior to Sing Lo. What kind of man is he to hide his head and shrink his tail? Sing Lo muttered. Whether he is a man or not, I know that. It's none of your business. Glancing at Sing Lo, Yin-Shi ignored Night Sorrow who Sing Lo and took the teleportation array to leave the Seven Star City. Night Sorrow didn't care about Sing Lo's provocation at all because it was meaningless. However, Yin-Shi was unhappy when she heard it. She directly retorted with a sentence that made Sing Lo dumbfounded. Do you have to be so angry with him? Night Sorrow said after they were teleported to Tai Ching City and exited the teleportation array. As for whether you are a man or not, what kind of nonsense is that? Yin-Shi muttered. At the Seven Stars City's teleportation array, Sing Lo was still in a daze. Night Sorrow didn't retaliate, but Yin-Shi's counterattack was too powerful. A saintess said that she knew whether Night Sorrow was a man or not. This counterattack was too strong. Aunt, what's wrong? Can't you figure it out? Actually, if he was so calculative, our Seven Stars dynasty would be in ruins now. Star Tiger walked over and said. Sing Lo nodded. She knew that this was the truth. As long as they couldn't stop Yin-Shi, the Seven Stars dynasty would be massacred. She also knew that Night Sorrow stopped because he was looking at the big picture and also because he was giving face to Star Tiger. Maybe there are many people from the Seven Stars dynasty who can't accept defeat and have hatred in their hearts. Aunt might also have hatred in her heart. However, I don't hate. What our Seven Stars dynasty did in the past was indeed disgraceful. Star Tiger looked at Sing Lo and said. Hatred is meaningless. You have to pay back what you owe. However, strength determines everything. If you have a big fist, who dares to collect what you owe? If you have a big fist, who dares to not pay back the debt? Sing Lo also had a set of principles in her heart. Star Tiger smiled. He knew that this matter didn't affect Sing Lo much. Night Sorrow arrived at the mansion in the Tai Ching domain and put Yin-Shi into the spacetime pagoda. Then, he teleported back to the city in the sky and went to Yilinghuan's residence. He still wanted to tell Yilinghuan about this matter. He was the one who made the decision to reconcile. He didn't know if Yilinghuan would accept it. If he didn't, he would really be slapping himself in the face. In the attic where Yilinghuan lived, Night Sorrow saw Yilinghuan, Night God Kuang, and Night God Thunder. Night Sorrow is here. Sit. Night God Thunder greeted. Night Sorrow bowed to the three of them and sat down. What's the situation now? Night Moon is ready. We can start the war in 3 days. Yiling Huan looked at Night Sorrow and asked. I made a decision on my own today. Please forgive me, Grandpa and great uncles. Night Sorrow stood up and bowed to Yiling Huan and the others. Then, he talked about how he had severely injured the 7-star saint and accepted the reconciliation with the 7-star dynasty. Night Sorrow, you didn't do anything wrong in this matter. The 7-star dynasty wasn't the mastermind back then. Killing people is just a matter of nodding their heads. They admit that they are in trouble. They admit that they are in trouble. They admit that they are in trouble until Night Moon offers incense and sacrifices. They admit that they are in trouble. Yiling Huan said to Night Sorrow. Grandpa, there are still some things that I didn't say. Right now, the 9 domains are in great danger. The 9 domains' peak combat power can't be lost easily. Night Sorrow then talked about the Supreme River Space, the Netherworld, and Clear Sky City. He also talked about some of his own speculations. Ling Huan, it seems that we have to work hard on our clan's land in the Night Moon Sea. If the 9 domains are in danger, the Night Clan will have a place to retreat, Night God Thunder said. That's necessary. However, we still have to fight. After all, the news from the 7-star dynasty can't be sealed. Let's take down the Golden Dragon King dynasty first, then the Green Nether dynasty, and finally the strongest Red Leaf dynasty, Yiling Huan said. Night God Thunder and Night God Kwang nodded. They had to take revenge for the destruction of the Night Moon dynasty. However, they didn't ask how Night Sorrow had dealt with the 7-star saint. If Night Sorrow wanted to say, he would. If he didn't want to say, it would be inconvenient. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.